trotted out of the area.
Right. And we don't know how far they're being taken away, but our crews are closer than they are going, so they are going farther than that, we can say. There is another dog being taken out, a pet and its owner. Again, no one is walking out of that building. They are running.
You can just imagine how other residents in the area are feeling.
Yeah, as they watch this unfold.
As they watch this unfold outside their doors, outside their windows. It's just an incredible scenario unfolding right now as we approach 5:30.
As we look at that Ava building, Ava Van Ness building, it looks as though most of the units have balconies. I'm still trying to get I'm counting at least 7 floors. We're going to push in here. That's Amy Cho's camera there on the corner of Connecticut. There's the Ava building. And it is an apartment, a rental building. We don't know how many units.
And it's been the focus of much of the police activity that we have seen for, 2 hours now.
We have seen rifles trained upward and everyone looking up. Darcy Spencer is at the news conference now. We want to throw it to Darcy now. Who all is on the scene, or are we expecting, Darcy?
Well, Jim, as you can imagine, it is a very chaotic scene here as well. I'm at the media staging area. I'm standing on Connecticut Avenue at the intersection with Porter Street, and you can see the scene, the vast scene right up the street here as you look north on Connecticut Avenue. Police car after police car with flashing lights. There is a lot of activity here. We were told to set up here. There are a lot of cameras from a lot of different stations here, a lot of chaos.
We can see the mayor approaching along with the chief, I believe. You can see her in our camera view as we push in there.
Harper, are you here? Steve Harper, raise your hand.
That's right. The mayor is on her way here for the news conference to update us, and there's an assistant chief who's going to provide an update as well. This will be the first time that we are getting official information with DC Police on camera this afternoon since this incident began to unfold in the 3 o'clock hour. So we're hoping to find out more details in terms of how many people were injured in this shooting. What is the status of the shooter or shooters? We don't know at this point. And so we're hoping to get updated information and to see, is this still an active, ongoing situation right now? So you can see that she's making her way here with DC police officials. There's also representation from the DC Fire Department. They're all planning to be here and potentially provide statements. And you can see off in the distance all of the flashing police lights. So this is still a very active situation out here. So you can see she's making her way here, and we'll wait for her to speak.
And as we wait, we want to let viewers know that there's a family reunification center now at 3310 Connecticut Avenue. That's the Cleveland Park Library. Here now, Mayor Muriel Bowser.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Assistant Chief Stuart Emmerman of the Metropolitan Police Department. At approximately 3:20 this afternoon, members of the Metropolitan Police Department responded to the area of Connecticut Avenue and Van Ness Street Northwest for the reported sounds of gunshots. Upon their arrival at that scene, the officers located 3 individuals who were suffering from gunshot wounds. All 3 individuals have been taken to area hospitals where they are currently being treated. 2 of the individuals are adults and are considered in stable condition based on their injuries. The 3rd victim is a juvenile, and that juvenile is also in stable condition with a minor gunshot wound. At this time, our units are currently in the area of Connecticut and Van Ness conducting a search for a suspect or suspects. That is still to be determined as our investigation is continuing this time. We're asking the public to stay away from this area as we continue to do our search and continue our investigation. This is a very early point in our investigation, and we're still trying to figure out the motive or what specifically took place here. Are there any questions?
There's a report, Chief, that the authorities located a tripod of some type that may have been connected to whoever the shooter is. Is that true? And if so, what would that tell?
I don't have information on that at this time to give. At this point, we do not have any suspects in custody. We're interviewing several witnesses. As would naturally happen during an incident like this, several individuals ran from the area. So we did stop several individuals to conduct witness investigations with them. But that's what is, I think, being reported as suspects. Those people were interviewing from the scene. As we conduct our investigation, if they are not linked to the incident, yes, they will be released. That is still to be determined at this time, but no members of the Metropolitan Police Department that responded or of our partner agencies that responded have been injured during the course of this incident.
Are you aware of the shooter live streamed this at all?
There is information out there on social media. However, we have not been able to authenticate that at this time to determine whether if that is even related to our incident.
Back there.
I'm sorry. None of the responding members from our law enforcement agency and partners that were on the scene here have been injured as a result.
Right. Is it possible any of the individuals were shot by members of some law enforcement agency?
That is still to be determined. They're in the hospital being treated right now at this time.
Darcy.
We are still trying to determine that. I'm sorry? Is what related? I'm sorry. Oh, the victims? That we are still trying to determine as well at this time. As I said, this investigation is still very much in its early stages.
Chief, at this point, we heard from some people they were surprised to see how large of a response there was out here. What would you say to them?
Well, I would say based upon the calls that we got and the information and the fluid nature of this investigation, an appropriate response came to this area to make sure that we've locked down the neighborhood, we've made sure that folks up here are safe and sheltering, and we're continuing to do a very thorough search. As you know, some of these buildings are very large. They've taken some time for us to go through, especially based on the information that we have at the beginning of this investigation. So we're getting assistance right now from the United States Park Police, United States Secret Service Uniform Division. We've got assistance here from the University of District Columbia Police. We also have some of our federal entities from ATF, FBI, and there are several others who are trying to assist us in this. We don't know that answer at this time. We're still trying to authenticate that video.
Is there more than one shooting location?
No, at this time we believe we have one location.
I was going to ask, Chief, could you tell us about where the victims were found? Were they grouped together? Do you believe they were all wounded in the same area? Can you describe that area to us?
So I don't have that information this time because, as naturally it happens after individuals were shot, some of them moved to different locations where we encountered them. So we're still piecing all that together as part of our investigation.
Sam.
There are several apartment buildings in that area. As part of our investigation, we are canvassing and searching all of those areas. We're still trying to determine that.
Are any of the embassies involved?
Not that I'm aware of. There are embassies in the immediate area, so we are working with our partners from the U.S. Secret Service Uniform Division to make proper notifications to them as well.
Are you asking people in this immediate area to remain sheltered?
Yes. Yes, at this time, please, we're asking if you are residing in this area to please shelter in place. Please stand by until we render the area clear and safe. If you do have information, we're asking you to call our Command Information Center at 202-727-9099, or you can text us at 50411, any information that you may have. We're still trying to determine that. This investigation is still, like I say, we're in its early stages. We're going to be investigating all angles of that.
Can you say the condition of those in the hospital?
Everybody at this point is stable. I believe 2 of them are critical but stable.
Expected to survive?
Is my hope and understanding that they will. But they are critical but stable.
Chief, what was that phone number again?
Oh yes, there is. So there is a school up in the area, Van Ness and Connecticut. That school immediately went into a lockdown. Their students are inside the building at this point until we determine that the area is safe for them to leave. We have police officers inside the school with them. As soon as we have it situated that it is safe for them, we will make sure that the school system is notifying the parents of a reunification center where we can get them safely to reunite with their children. But we're asking the parents not to come up here to the school at this time. The children are all in the school, safe with the officers that are in there.
Chief, with the helicopter going overhead, can you take us from the top here. What did you guys have happen here, so we can all hear it, make sure that we're clear about what happened?
Sure.
Can I follow up on this? We heard reports that 2 students had minor injuries from breaking glass, and some of the parents had some of their tires shot out and picked up. But again, it's a fluid situation.
Correct.
I don't have verification of that.
Correct. That is all stuff that we are working on right now. As you know, we do believe that there are some vehicles on the scene that were damaged as a result of the shooting, so that's part of our investigation to determine if that was in fact part of this.
Chief, you want to answer Clarence,
yes.
please?
So again, to recap, at about 3:20, members of the Metropolitan Police Department responded to the area of Van Ness in Connecticut in regards to the sounds of gunshots, where we located 3 shooting victims, 2 adults who are in critical but stable condition at our area hospitals, and a third, which was a juvenile who is stable with a minor gunshot wound, also being treated at an area hospital. We do not know any relationships at this point between any of these 3. We are currently continuing to search the area, and we have it locked down at this point as we're looking for any suspect or suspects. We do not have a motive at this time. We do not know the full details of what took place, but we continue to ask the public to just steer clear of the area as we continue to investigate.
Right here, Chief.
How close was that gunfire to the school attack?
Again, we're still trying to figure that out. We believe it was in the immediate area.
Back there, Chief.
From the initial reports about why law enforcement responded, did they have an indication of what type of weapon was used based off the sound?
No, unfortunately, I don't have that information yet.
Chief, there was a report of a suspect being detained, taken away in handcuffs. Can you confirm that?
So as I stated earlier, several people naturally ran from the scene of hearing gunshots, and as the officers responded very quickly to the scene, as individuals were running, we did detain several individuals to determine their status, whether or not they were suspects or witnesses. But at this time, I do not believe that we have any suspects at this time detained, and we're continuing our investigation.
Chief, right now, are you going off the theory that this gunman is still in this immediate area or may have left the area?
We're still exploring all our theories, but right now we are concentrating on in the immediate area to make sure that we've rendered this area safe for the public as well as everybody who's out here.
Are your people going door to door?
We are in several buildings doing door-to-door sweeps right now.
Do you have a description, just anything, tall guy, short guy?
We do not have any description at this time that I can put out.
How do you kind of know what to look for in the building?
That's part of the reason why we're doing a very thorough sweep.
Any surveillance video you're looking at?
We're still working on pulling videos to help our investigation.
It was a little loud when he asked about that streaming event. Looks like people were saying the shooter streamed his van.
So there is a social media video that is out, but we have not yet been able to authenticate that that's even this scene, that's even today, or that's even here in the United States. We're still working on that.
Mayor, your thoughts, sir?
Well, first of all, I want to thank all of our first responders, the Metropolitan Police Department, Fire and EMS, all of our federal partners who are on this scene, who are responding and looking for the person responsible for this shooting. We have 3 of our residents who have been injured, and we are praying for their health and well-being. We understand 2 are in stable condition and that there was a minor gunshot wound to a child. And so we're very focused on that. We're asking all of our residents to follow law enforcement instructions, stay in your homes, shelter in place until the police are able to release these scenes and safely really dig into this investigation close to where the shootings happened.
One more question.
Last question, please.
The initial reports when the victims were discovered, were there any reports of Good Samaritans stopping bleeding, anyone jumping into action before paramedics arrived?
I have heard that. I have not been able to confirm that yet, though.
Can we get some sense of how many
Just the one
shots we
school
think
on
were
lockdown?
fired?
There's one school there. There's, I believe, another school in the area that may have had some individuals that ran towards it. I believe that they were not affected.
Chief,
The adults, one is a male, one is a female. Correct.
Chief, can you give us some description of how many shots you believe may have been fired from witnesses or any
Multiple shots. We do not have that information yet.
All right, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
There you have it from the mayor and the assistant police chief with D.C. Metropolitan Police. The search continues for a suspect or suspects. Building sweeps, multiple building sweeps continue. They're going to start pulling videos, cameras to these buildings to see if they can glean anything from that. Now, we had shown people being taken away. we're still seeing people with their hands up running away from this Ava building there on Van Ness in Connecticut. We have seen people being taken away from the scene. They say they have no suspects in custody. People are being interviewed now as we watch these live pictures. Still, we've seen a number of people coming out with their pets and hands up in the air running away from that scene. But I want to go back to the fact that they say that they have no suspects. We have shown people being led away. These are residents, but one person in handcuffs. They said that some people initially were running away from the scene and they wanted to apprehend them or find out why they were leaving. Some are still being questioned right now as this witness investigation continues. But the good news here, the juvenile has minor gunshot wounds. An adult male and female are in critical but stable condition.
Police were also careful to address information that may be out there, that is out there on social media. They have not been able to authenticate that, so they're not addressing it. What they're doing is conducting a very thorough investigation search, door-to-door search, to make sure, number one, that all the residents are out of that area, out of that building, and to determine if there are others who are inside the building who need to get out. The students are safe inside the Edmund Burke School there at Van Ness and Connecticut Avenue. A police officer inside with the students. Their parents are being notified, but they're being asked not to go to the school. Rather, a family reunification center has been set up at the Cleveland Park Library, and that's where you can go if you are looking for a child to reconnect or a child to pick up. So again, police are asking parents not to go to the school, to go directly to the library.
And if you have any information they want to hear from you, you can text 50411. We want to go back to our Jackie Benson at the intersection just a few blocks away from that staging area that police were at Porter there. From what you heard from that news conference, Jackie, what does that lead you to believe? That the search is intensifying, that it is still one suspect or more?
You know, I don't want to speculate, but it does seem to me to be sounding more and more like one suspect. What I do want to tell you is that the assistant chief who spoke outlined for you or explained for you what we're seeing here when you see all these people running down the street. They have to operate on the premise, the possibility that the gunman, the shooter, is in one of these apartment buildings, possibly the AVA or Ava, I'm not sure what it's called, and they've got to get everybody out of there. They've got to get in every single apartment in there. Number one, get people to come out to be safe, and that's why they have them have their hands up to make sure, you know, the officers are actually clearing them. They are protecting them with their guns drawn as they are coming out. And you can see down. I mean, I can't even imagine. I can't even imagine the stress and the terror people going through. And I'm grateful for having my own 20-somethings in my life. I know how incredibly resilient and strong they are. But there was one picture of a young man carrying a running, and the dog had to be about 50 to 75 pounds. And they are both okay. All these people are being taken inside a building, it looks like very close to us here on the UDC campus, where they'll be able to get themselves together, charge their phones, talk to police, and just be safe. You can see the one down there is actually videoing as she's going out, showing what's going on. But they've got to go through every possible place around here and make sure that that gunman is not still here.
So true. And Jackie, we're seeing so many people leaving with their hands up. We heard the assistant chief say they have no description or one that they would share with us, which makes you wonder if they know who they're looking for and the hands are up because they want to make sure no one coming out is a risk to anyone else.
That's exactly why they do it. And you know, you see it on TV, you see it in other places. We don't see it here that often. And this is just, it's a very dark day here.
Indeed it is. Jackie Benson reporting live for us. Let's go now to Darcy Spencer, who was there at the scene where we just heard from the assistant police chief and the mayor. Darcy?
That's right, Pat. I was really struck by how much the police actually don't know at this point in this investigation. The fact that there is not a suspect in custody, and you know, at this point, we don't know where that shooter is. So that's the level of danger that we're dealing with right now. Someone who potentially fired many rounds. Many folks were saying it sounded like automatic gunfire, and yet that person is still at large as far as we know. That's the frightening thing here. A little bit of good news in that the child who was hit by gunfire suffered a minor injury. What you're looking at right now, we're on Connecticut Avenue at Porter Street. This is the media staging area where the officials just spoke. So we're looking north up Connecticut Avenue so you can see just how the street is filled with police cars. The police presence is still here, very active. Two of the adult victims, a man and a woman, they are in critical condition, as you said, but police made it clear that they are stable, and certainly it's hopeful that they will survive this shooting. Many questions asked by reporters at this news conference, including, was this a targeted shooting? They simply don't know. They don't know the type of weapon that may have been used. Was there more than one shooter? This is all what they're still trying to figure out themselves, so they were not able to answer a lot of the questions that we had. They were also asked about social media posts showing certain things, including the shooting, and they're not confirming any of those videos at this point. As you know, they're focused on this investigation right now and getting this shooter into custody. Those sorts of things will come later, but they are going to look for potential surveillance video and other videos that are going to help them with this investigation, again, determining who is responsible for the shooting, get this person into custody before anyone else can be hurt today. The mayor made it clear, and the officials here, it's very important for people to stay out of this area. Of course, you know, a lot of people are curious and they want to come out and see what's happening. But they're saying, please don't do that, because I can tell you it's very crowded here. There's a lot of media here, and there are people trying to get through here, police officers also going by us. So they're urging people, and if you're in that zone that you're seeing behind me, they're asking you to stay in your home as they conduct these searches. Let's hear a little bit of what the assistant chief had to say.
Upon their arrival at that scene, the officers located 3 individuals who were suffering from gunshot wounds. All 3 individuals have been taken to area hospitals where they are currently being treated. 2 of the individuals are adults and are considered in stable condition based on their injuries. The 3rd victim is a juvenile, and that juvenile is also in stable condition with a minor gunshot wound. At this time, our units are currently in the area of Connecticut and Van Ness conducting a search for a suspect or suspects. That is still to be determined as our investigation is continuing this time. We are currently continuing to search the area, and we have it locked down at this point as we're looking for any suspect or suspects. We do not have a motive at this time. We do not know the full details of what took place, but we continue to ask the public to just steer clear of the area as we continue to investigate.
We have 3 of our residents who have been injured, and we are praying for their health and well-being. We understand 2 are in stable condition, and that there was a minor gunshot wound to a child. And so we're very focused on that. We're asking all of our residents to follow law enforcement instructions, stay in your homes, shelter in place.
And you heard the mayor just then telling people to, if you're in that area where this active investigation is going on, to stay in your home. That's the safest place to be, because you're seeing in the video how dangerous it is. They're trying to make sure no one else gets hurt. So that's very important at this hour. And you can imagine the mayor dealing with this situation, knowing 3 people have already been shot, and them wanting to get someone into custody before anyone else gets hurt. Back to you.
And this, of course, important reminder, is still a high-risk area because they do not have a suspect or suspects in custody. They are poring over videos right now and still interviewing multiple witnesses who may know the shooter. We see another rifle trained upward at this Ava building, which we've seen people pouring out of for about better part of an hour right now. Many of them running out with their hands up. some taking their pets out with them too. Again, we don't have a description of who the shooter is. I'm curious, in this building, which looks to be, as I try to count up the floors, 9 or 10 stories, but a lot of the units have balconies. Where that gunfire came from, that is the big question. We have seen a lot of police from multiple agencies looking up at that building all afternoon since they first got the call. Shortly after 3:20 this afternoon, 3 separate bursts of automatic gunfire coming over the span of about 2.5 minutes, 2:45, according to Jackie Benson and witnesses who she has talked to. A lot of people didn't recognize that it was gunfire. People were walking on the streets on this beautiful Friday, a busy Connecticut Avenue. A lot of residential here. We see one of the many ambulances on the scene now. They are bringing a gurney out. We don't know what this is all about here, if there is someone in need of it. But take a look at this, folks. On a Friday afternoon rush hour, this would be one of the most major arteries out of the city toward Maryland and the Beltway. Dozens of fire vehicles, ambulances, and of course police from Secret Service all the way to the FBI and the Metropolitan Police Department, and Park Police, we understand, as well. Again, 2 adults, a male and female, in critical but stable condition. A child was shot, and she is in, we understand it may be a girl, in stable condition with minor gunshot wounds. Again, we have multiple schools in lockdown still. Edmund Burke, where police are inside the building. All students are safe, with the staff as well. Initially, they were told to hide under desks. Doors were barricaded. Howard University Law School also in lockdown, along with UDC. We have seen part of that campus in some of the aerial shots that we have here. It's amazing what kind of firepower we have seen trained on this scene right here, the vehicles coming in and out, and just the intense nature, which certainly chilling is the one word that comes to mind, because this is normally a very safe area of our city. In the past few weeks, not so much, but nothing on the scale of this in terms of terror and just frightening residents and people at work too. I want to bring in Erica Gonzalez, and you started our 4 o'clock newscast. Erica, you and your husband used to live in this area not too long ago, but tell our viewers, there's one of my favorite restaurants I go to all the time. Sfolina. Yep. And there is also a very busy Van Ness Metro Station.
Right, the Van Ness Metro Station, which there's the giant, if you're familiar with the area, the giant grocery store is right there. And as Mark had alluded to in his commentary, we had recently seen and heard of a lot of activity happening over in that Van Ness area by the Park Van Ness apartments, the Days Inn hotel or motel that's there, that there had been some gunfire, some altercations that had transpired there. This scene is about a half-mile south from that location, but all these streets are so close together. So Van Ness, Upton, Porter, Tilden, they're all in that area. The family reunification point we should mention for anybody that is looking to connect with somebody that may be in that area that had to be escorted out from that scene, parents who are looking for their kids. This is going to be at the Cleveland Park Library. It's about a half-mile away from where the school is. And it's another metro stop.
That's the Cleveland Park Metro stop, which should be easy to access too. But right now, we know the kids can't leave the building. They are still in lockdown. We see people walking away from the scene, a lot of media there too, we should point out, but it was just really horrifying to see so many young people walking out. Walking out and running out of that building with their hands up, only carrying their cell phones with them. We've gotten some information. The man who was videotaped and actually publicly paraded in front of everyone in handcuffs is not a suspect, we are hearing from police. We heard from the assistant police chief that there were a number of people who they wanted to interview. Initially, some people were seen running away from the scene, and they didn't know why they were running. So those people were taken in for interviewing and questioning to see if they knew anything about the gunfire or the shooter. But the person that we had seen earlier and had been broadcast by all stations here was not, in fact, a suspect, is not a suspect.
Right, which is why we heard the assistant chief of police and the D.C. mayor say that they were still looking for suspect or suspects. This has now been going on since about 3:30 this afternoon. We started joining you on the air about 15 minutes thereafter. So now, coming up on 6 o'clock, we're going to do a quick pause, a reset, and we'll see you just after this. Hang with me.
News 4 at 6 begins with breaking news.
Good evening. It is 6 o'clock on a Friday afternoon, and we are in the middle of live breaking news coverage. The Van Ness neighborhood of Northwest Washington is essentially locked down, and a terrifying afternoon that is still unfolding right now. So many questions remain. Also, a gunman still needs to be captured, perhaps more than one suspect.
Right, what you're looking at are live pictures from Chopper 4. We know that there on the scene are at least 3 ambulances. We know 3 people were shot this afternoon. 2 adults, we're told, that are in critical but stable condition, and 1 juvenile, as Jim had reported, with in stable condition with minor gunshot wounds is how police had addressed it. Detectives do not have a suspect in custody.
They haven't even put out a description yet, which leads us to think if they did know who they were looking for, they would certainly share that, because they want as much information as they can get their hands on. There is a family reunification center, as we mentioned earlier, at the Cleveland Park Library. This is what it sounded like around 3:20 this afternoon. Rapid gunfire, 3 barrages. Take a listen.
Can you imagine hearing that in broad daylight? One person that called in and told us about this said that he was on the line with a colleague and said, did you hear that? Because he couldn't believe what the sounds were like, and they were, I mean, deafening in that area, a densely populated area, as you were talking about, all those high-rise buildings. This is all happening along Connecticut Avenue at Edmund Burke School. So you've got also UDC, Howard Law School that are all right there. Those are all still under lockdown. We've been following this breaking news for just about 2 hours now.
We should point out that the gunman was never inside the school, but we saw panels of glass blown out in a causeway between the middle and high school. News 4 is live from every angle of this scene with team coverage. We want to begin again with Jackie Benson. And Jackie, what is the latest and what are you seeing? Are you still seeing people come out of those buildings?
We are, and we have some video to show you of what that looks like within, I'd say, the last hour. What we've seen are groups of people. I now believe they are bringing all those people out of the Ava building, we'll call it. I'm not sure exactly. It's the one with the orange sign out front. I believe they are going floor by floor through that building and removing people from their apartments and telling them running them to safety coming down this street. What I can also tell you is that we have some sound that we want to play for you. A young woman from Howard University Law School who was driving down the street with a friend as this barrage of gunfire that went on and on erupted. Listen to what she had to say.
And we heard gunshots go off so close to us, we stopped the car. All the cars just stopped at a straight standstill. And then we all stopped. We didn't know what to do. The gunshots sounded so close. And so we kept driving a little bit, and then another round went off. They just kept going off. It was so many gunshots. And then all the cars just stopped, and everybody on the street was screaming, yelling, trying to find somewhere to go. And then we just turned the corner, and then we saw police, start flying down. Then the police, hop out their car. And then another gunshot, so many more gunshots go off. They were continuous.
And again, we do not know the circumstances of this. The police have released no video. The fact that they are clearing the Ava building, the fact that officers keep looking up at the roof of that building, and the fact that the Edmund Burke School is where the window was shattered, as Tariq Warner, our photographer, said. I believe that school is within sight of the upper floors of that building. So again, a little bit about what possibly might have happened here. Yeah. I know police are still trying to put it together, but I know that people want to know what's going on. So of note, the proximity of those two locations. Back to you.
Jackie, we've been talking, as you just pointed out, about that building, the Ava building, that people have been looking, police have been looking up. We've seen rifles drawn toward upper floors. That building has a lot of balconies. A lot of residential buildings don't. Are we to assume or surmise that perhaps the shooter was on a balcony shooting from there, or from inside one of those units?
You know, I looked at a map, okay, and I looked and saw how you could see down basically that alley toward the school. The fact that they are looking at the upper floors, and the fact that, now that I can get a little bit closer and see a bit more, that the Ava appears to be the only building that they are bringing people out of, that's certainly a possible thing that they may be looking at.
Jackie Benson, thank you. We will be checking back with you throughout the hour as you gather more information, and thank you for sharing your perspectives too.
Quick note here, if you've got a student in that area, you are asked not to go to that area. Don't try to get to the Edmund Burke School. You're asked to go to the Cleveland Park Library, half a mile south from that location. That's going to be the family reunification point. We want to bring in Amy Cho now, who's been standing by. Amy, go ahead.
Hey guys, yeah, still such a tense, frightening situation here outside the Ava Van Ness building. We have been continuing to see groups of people being evacuated. I do want to point out now they are walking as opposed to running out of the building earlier, so it appears they feel a little bit more safe and able to take their time a bit more as they get out of the building. But truly such a frightening situation for those people who were stuck inside. I want to step out of the way and give you a better look at the heavy police presence still here. We have seen a number of officers throughout the afternoon with guns drawn pointing at the Ava building. We've also seen officers move into the building. We've also seen 3 ambulances on standby. A short time ago, they did bring out a gurney. However, they brought it into the crowd of bystanders, appeared to provide care for one of the bystanders who perhaps may have been fatigued or something. So not to provide medical attention for anybody who was at the Ava building. But yeah, giving you a look here at this scene, you can see all the police cars and the first responders. We've seen Park Police, Secret Service, helicopter flying over. We've seen that armored personnel carrier over there. A number of agents from the FBI had come in earlier with guns drawn. We've seen officers with shields and helmets and all kinds of other tactical equipment. I think the biggest takeaway from the press conference we heard a short time ago from the police is that they still do not know who they are looking for or how many people they are looking for. They had no description, no number of suspects. They said they are trying to work through searching those very large buildings, which is why it is taking so much time. They want to be methodical. Meantime, this entire area still remains shelter-in-place advisory. We spoke with people earlier who were taking cover inside a liquor store. They were afraid to come out because of the danger to the public. But yeah, still waiting for more information as far as a motive or the circumstances behind this shooting. Police say they themselves are still trying to figure out. But that is the very latest. We're going to send it back into you.
All right. Amy Cho, thank you. There on Connecticut earlier in the afternoon, we saw crowds of people, onlookers, just waiting. We don't see those people there anymore, and I don't know if they were right there on that corner.
That's
I'm
exactly
sure they've been told to move on.
Bank of America is. That scene has been cleared. Just a couple blocks south of this location is Connecticut and Porter. That's where News 4's Darcy Spencer is. That's where the press briefing was, the media briefing from the mayor of D.C., Mayor Muriel Bowser, and the Assistant Chief of Police. Darcy?
That's right, Erica. That news conference wrapped up just a short time ago, giving us an update on this investigation. And as Amy said, we found out that they have a lot of work to do before they can get someone in custody. At this point, there is no suspect, there is no arrest, and no description was provided of a potential shooter. So this is a very dangerous and active situation still going on. I'm at Connecticut and Porter. I'm a few blocks south of where the other reporters are, so I'm a little bit from a distance away from where they are, but you can see, if you look up Connecticut Avenue, the sea of police cruisers going as far as you can see, and there are more continuing to arrive as this investigation continues. Police officials confirming 3 people have been shot and wounded. A man and a woman are in critical condition at a local hospital. A child was also shot and wounded. The good news there, we're told that that is a minor injury. That child is expected to be okay. But as we said, police still have a lot of work that they're doing right now, and it sounds like from what the other reporters are saying, that they're trying to clear that area and get it as safe as possible as they continue their search for that shooter. Let's hear a little bit of what the assistant police chief and the mayor had to say.
We are currently continuing to search the area, and we have it locked down at this point as we're looking for any suspect or suspects. We do not have a motive at this time. We do not know the full details of what took place.
We have 3 of our residents who have been injured, and we are praying for their health and well-being. We understand 2 are in stable condition and that there was a minor gunshot wound to a child. And so we're very focused on that. We're asking all of our residents to follow law enforcement instructions, stay in your homes, shelter in place.
So we asked a lot of different questions. There's a lot of reporters covering this story, as you can imagine, but police really didn't have answers to a lot of those questions, including about some of the videos that are circulating on social media. They have not been authenticated at this point. There's not anyone in custody in connection with this shooting investigation, and surveillance video. All those things are going to be happening, but right now they have to focus on the immediate, and that is making sure everyone in that vicinity is safe and trying to get this person in custody, as we've been saying, before anyone else gets hurt. And you could tell the mayor just super concerned right now. This is her city, and knowing that 3 of the residents have been shot and wounded, and they're going to be out here for some time. I can tell you, I asked the question, do you think that this shooter is still in the area or perhaps left? That's something that they don't know, but right now they're focusing on the area where the shooting happened and the residents in that immediate area. And of course, that school. Your heart goes out to those kids. And my coworker Tariq, I texted him to make sure he and his little girl are okay. So this hits home, for all of us. We know him and love him, and we know that she's okay. But it's scary for those kids inside that school.
Just terrifying. Darcy, thank you. We've just learned that the mayor will be holding another news conference. We don't know the exact time, but just a few blocks north from where Darcy is, there is a family reunification center at the Cleveland Park Library, and we want to go to Corey Smith to continue our team coverage. Corey, what are you seeing where you are there? Have you seen parents arrive or people looking for loved ones?
We have, Jim, a number of parents have arrived on the scene. They are being ushered inside by police. I'll go and step out of the way, just show it to you. As you can see that sign on the door, Family Reunification Center. There's another sign underneath it that says the library is on lockdown due to the police activity. I can also tell you that there is an official from the school that is here waiting on those parents. I asked when we may start seeing some kids being released and brought here. He said hopefully in about an hour or so. That was about 5 minutes ago. But just talking to the parents who have arrived, many of them grateful that their kids are safe. They've been able to get in touch with them from the very beginning when this all started. And I believe we can bring you some video from earlier today. Not sure what you're going to see first, but I know we do have some video of SWAT team outside Edmund Burke School, which again is only about, a half mile, a little more than half a mile away from where we are on Connecticut Avenue. In fact, if I step out onto Connecticut Avenue, I can see the flashing lights of police sirens and ambulance. I can also tell you that we saw a D.C. Homeland Security vehicle pass by about 10 or so minutes ago. So still a very fluid situation. MPD is here on the scene talking to parents, letting them in. Members of the Red Cross are also here at the library. You can almost tell who is a parent just by the look on their faces. Many of them on the phones talking to loved ones, letting them know that they've arrived here. So hopefully we will really start to see those reunifications happen. But certainly a very emotional day for those parents who sent their kids to school on a Friday, ready to start the weekend, only to have this completely disrupt their day, which will no doubt stick with these kids. It's the one thing that we often say about these shootings. While we're so thankful that we see kids coming out of school safe, there is still trauma there. They are still shaken. This has a very deep impact on them. So hopefully the big hugs that they will get when they arrive here at the Cleveland Park Library will bring them some sort of comfort, but no doubt this is going to stay with them for a very long time. We're going to stay out here, monitor the situation, maybe talk to some folks who might be gracious enough to let us know how they're feeling, but that is the very latest outside the Reunification Center here at the Cleveland Park Library. We'll send it back to you.
Corey Smith, thank you. And in so many other cases and crises that we cover, for the children, they end pretty quickly. We are heading into our 3rd hour, and they've had no contact with their parents except by texting and by phone, but they are still in lockdown mode, sheltering in place, again in 3 schools, because we've got the Howard University Law School, UDC, and then Edmund Burke Middle High.
Right, and then we heard from one parent who was there, who was talking to Amy, and just said, you hear it and it's everywhere else, but you never imagine. Unfortunately, we hear that same soundbite, that same interview from parents that unfortunately have to respond to scenes like this, waiting for their kids, that you just never imagine it's going to be in your neighborhood or affect your child or your kid's school. And that has happened this afternoon to one of our photographers and good friends, Tariq Warner. He has a daughter who attends the Edmund Burke School. He had taken the day off, he was telling us, to enjoy a beautiful Friday with his family. He was in the area for pickup, like a lot of parents, around 3:30 this afternoon. When all of this started to transpire, Tariq joins us by phone again during this hour. Tariq, how are you holding up? How's the family?
Hey, Erica. Hey, Jim. I'm holding up. You know, like you said, you know, I've been here for a long time. I've done everything from 9/11 to the D.C. sniper. And I've been that photojournalist looking for the parent like myself, right? Looking for someone to talk to see how they're doing. And as Corey was saying earlier, this stuff sticks with kids. You know, when you have, if you're a parent, you have kids of a certain age. You know, we're going through a pandemic that's still ongoing. You know, that was tough when they're virtually learning. To cover mass shootings at schools, to go to pick your child up from school. I watched the kid who was picked up. I watched this kid get picked up off the ground today when I arrived by 2 police officers in tactical uniform and take her away. She wasn't even picked up by EMT. She was picked up by officers in tactical uniform. It's just a lot. It's just a lot. You know, my daughter's safe. That's the good news. You know, we'll have to deal with this. I just watched a bunch of SWAT team people walk up, and I know they're doing, you know, the police, God bless them, to get our kids.
Yeah. Tariq, have you already made your way to the Cleveland Park Library? Where are you waiting?
Well, I'm about to.
Okay.
I'm about to, because I know I've talked to my daughter. They're not. The kids haven't left yet. It's the process. Right. So it's going to take a while. We're in for a long evening. We know that already. We're in for a long evening. But it's just a lot. It's a lot. You know, and you cover stuff like this, and then to be on the other side of it is a lot.
Tariq, we heard from the assistant chief that there are a number of officers. Obviously, that school is extremely safe right now. A number of officers in the building, in the rooms, in the hallways, and surrounding that building too. I guess that would give you some small sense of comfort.
Absolutely, Jim. I mean, it's the police are doing their best, right? Yeah. And to Jackie's point, where I am, you could see the Ava building. I sent you guys a picture earlier. You see the walkway that connects the middle school to the high school.
Right.
If that is where the shots came from, that's where they came from. And I just had a parent just show me some video, another parent who was in the car, pull up way before I was, who had to duck down. He actually left his car running because he heard the shots. He saw the shattered glass. But apparently there's the person who shot this. If this is, it's not confirmed. I just saw this on Twitter. It was whoever did this live streamed it.
Tariq, right? Can you tell people, when we started talking to you about 4-ish this afternoon, can you tell people where you were at, because you were told to seek cover immediately? Tell people, set the scene for us around that time. What was happening?
so I you know, it was about 3:10. My daughter gets out of school at 3:15. I'm coming up Tilden Avenue, and I see this huge police presence. See all these sirens, and I know something's going on. And I heard somebody say there was a shooting, and we were in the car, and we're on Tilden, and I just like immediately pulled off and parked in the residential area of Tilden and walked up the alleyway that connects Tilden to Upton to Van Ness, and we got to the corner of Upton Street, and there was police tape and very heavily militarized police with their guns pointing at my daughter's school. And so I didn't know, and the first thing I heard was all the parents there that said, oh, there's windows were shot out. So I'm thinking, oh, there's a school shooter. So the best news I heard all day was it wasn't an active shooter inside
the school building.
And so I was like, woo, you know, it's a really good school. It's a great academic community, great supportive community. The Burke community is a wonderful community. And I'll say that, yes, I'm a parent there, but it's a very wonderful school. But it just to see that in this situation, you're going to pick up your child. And I'm a news guy. I do this stuff all the time.
Yeah.
And when it's, yeah. And anyway.
Tariq, you mentioned it's going to be a long night, and it's already been a long day for all of you who've been touched by this personally. Has the school given you any indication about when you might be able to be reunified with your child?
Not the school direct. I have not been checking my email. I've been in direct communication with my daughter.
Right.
Okay.
I told her to, when you are leaving the building, text me, call me, and I will come get you. So I'm gonna, after I get off the phone, I'm just gonna go to the Reunification Center right there and just wait like every other parent, and just wait to see my child.
Tariq, we are sending you our love, my friend, sending you a big hug. We're so glad to hear that Maya's okay. Thank you for describing this for our viewers and what has been a frightening ordeal for any and every parent who has a child in this area. You just never think, obviously, unfortunately, that this is going to happen in a school where you send your kids to.
Tariq Warner, thank you again for sharing your thoughts this afternoon and what you also witnessed today, too.
One thing, can everybody just be nicer to each other, right? Just be nice. Because what's wrong is people don't know how to do peaceful resolutions. Everything doesn't have to be extreme. Just love each other. Just be nice. Right?
Tariq, thank you. We will leave it with those profound words there, profound in their simplicity. We appreciate that. We have some new video that we want to show folks. Someone rescued and walked across the street here. Take a look at this right now. It's an officer walking someone across the street and out of harm's way. A crowd of police, in fact. You know, we've been seeing and hearing about some heroism and some good Samaritans, and those stories will be coming in throughout the evening, and we hope to bring those to you on News 4 at 11. But right now, I think we want to go back to Jackie Benson. And Jackie, what are you seeing now, and what have you seen change in the past 15 or 20 minutes since we talked to you?
I can tell you that what I saw change in the last 15 or 20 minutes is we did see one armored personnel carrier leave this scene. You know, just in my gut, I'm seeing a lowering of the body language, the stress level of the officers who are here at the scene. You can see they are still bringing people out of that building, but and with their hands up, but they're bringing them out a little more slowly. I will tell you that the thing that I absolutely have noticed now that we've seen them clear that floor by floor is when they're coming out of that building, they are being told to run out of that building, which leads me to believe, and again we go back to it, and again what Tariq talked about, that there is the possibility for them, for police, that the gunman is still inside that building. That is the reason for running people out of there. That is the reason for the police are literally providing cover for them as they are running down the street. In addition, I hear that we are going to be having another update, I believe, from the mayor and police, or maybe just police officials. And normally they don't call another update unless they have more information to give us. So hopefully we will hear some I'm not going to say good news, but some better news at that.
Jackie Benson there on the scene. If we can, Jackie. Oh, there's our shot from Chopper 4 there over the scene. From where Jackie was standing, and you could see the Ava building, it's the alleyway that really was the point of focus for a lot of law enforcement personnel. It is the alleyway that connects. Thank you so very much. This is Brad Freitas, who is drawing this out for this, illustrating this for us. There's that street back there.
Yes.
That's Van Ness. Then the alleyway that connects Van Ness to Upton and Tilden. And from the Ava building, see all those high-rise buildings there? You can look down that alleyway and see the backside of the Edmund Burke School, which is why Tariq was saying that when he was there and he had been able to take a picture of the windows of that causeway there, that he was able to visibly see one of those windows blown out, the glass shattered on that window. So again, that point of focus there on that alleyway, but that stretches down. That next point of where media availability has been was Porter Street, which is where Darcy was.
These are the pictures that
right.
Tariq sent in, and 3 panels of glass blown out from the outside through this causeway, and they went out through other panels on the other side of this.
And he was saying that this is what connects the middle school to the high school part of Edmund Burke there. That next point of location is where Corey Smith is. That's the Cleveland Park Library, and that's where officials are saying, don't try to come to the school. Go to the Cleveland Park Library, and we'll try to get you reunified with family and children at that location.
Right now, we want to go to Amy Cho there on Connecticut again. You know, we were mentioning earlier, Amy, that we saw a lot of onlookers around you from businesses. That was about an hour and a half ago, maybe 2 hours. A lot of those people have moved on, or they've been asked to leave the area and go blocks away.
People do seem to have moved on. Others were pushed back by police. They had kind of expanded that area, pushing back the caution tape. But we did just speak with one of the onlookers, a mom who has 2 kids at the Edmund Burke School. She was too shaken to go on camera, but she tells me she was at the school for pickup right as school was getting out around 3:15. She tells me she had not yet turned into the pickup line, and she feels that is what saved her life. She said she heard so many gunshots and she couldn't go anywhere. She had to simply duck for cover in her car as she was hearing those gunshots. She then told me she was able to put her car in reverse and get out of that situation and speed away. But she says if she had turned into that pickup line, she feels she would have been trapped with nowhere to go and would have been shot at. That mom tells me she is thankful her 2 kids are okay. They are still in lockdown in the school, but she has been in touch with them, and she is just waiting to be able to reunite with them at the Cleveland Park Library. And we want to show you some video from early, a very active police scene out here. We have seen armored vehicles, lots of officers with shields and tactical gear, guns drawn at times. We've also seen groups of residents being evacuated over the past couple hours. They're coming out in small groups, some of them running with their hands up, others walking. They had time only to grab their cell phones and their dogs. They basically had to just drop everything and leave and get to safety after that traumatic experience. But I think the main takeaway still here from what we've gathered from police is that they still do not know how many people they are looking for, who they are looking for. There is no description of the suspect. We also a short time ago spoke with a neighbor who lives right around here. She said her neighbors heard the gunshots and she ran outside to see what was going on. Take a listen to what she had to say.
Neighbors did hear the gunshots and they said it was a lot of rounds, maybe 40 to 60. Some have even said more, but I didn't hear them myself. So yeah, really scary situation.
Now, right now, we appear to be in kind of a holding pattern. We have not seen too much motion or activity in the past few minutes here, but we will continue to stay on the scene and bring you updates as we get them. Back into you.
We know you will, Amy Cho. Amy, thank you. And we heard that the mayor is going to be holding another news conference shortly. We don't know how soon that's going to happen and what kind of new information she has. We want to go back to Corey Smith at that Family Reunification Center, which is on Connecticut 2 there at the Cleveland Park Library. Corey, What are you hearing now?
Well, Jim, right now we can tell you that more parents have arrived here at the library. We've actually been moved away from the front of it to give them room to come in, but I'm going to go ahead and step out of the way and I can show you. Beth, if you can, go ahead and push in. This is the reunification area of the library. Police are inside. There are some members from the American Red Cross in there as well. They have been talking with parents, obviously waiting for their children to come in. One other thing I heard, and I think it really just kind of puts a finer point on what Tariq was saying about the location where this is happening. And we can go ahead and show you some video earlier of the SWAT team members outside of the school. I spoke to a parent who said that had this happened 5 minutes later or so, that area would have been teeming with parents, with kids, waiting to be sent home for the weekend. It was, as Tariq has been saying, he was there to pick up his daughter. Parents were there in line ready to pick up their kids. So you can only imagine just how much worse this would have been. It's already terrible, but you hate to think about what could have happened had the pickup process really been started and been underway as this gunman opened fire. That parent told me he's been in contact with his child from the very beginning. They're okay. And as we've also said, the video that's been circulating on social media now, I'm sure many folks have seen it. The parent told me that his heart sank as soon as he saw that video because that picture that we showed you of the posters that say Clue on it, the parent said those are from a fundraiser that happened last week. And that walkway is where kids go. So you can only imagine just the sheer horror of seeing that video online, seeing those pictures and knowing exactly where that is at the school. Again, parents continue to arrive. It's obviously a very tough situation. I can tell you, I just saw a parent sitting down with a member of the Red Cross in tears, crying. You can expect, obviously, to see a lot of that as the night moves on. I spoke with a representative with police asking them when we might perhaps see the kids start to arriving, how they're going to get here. Are they going to be bussed in? What? He said that's still being worked on right now. So really all these parents can do is wait to see their kids, to hug their kids, and just start the process of trying to rationalize this, move on from this. I don't know. I don't have any children, so I can only imagine what our colleague Tariq is going through. But yeah, just a very, very tough situation out here. But we're going to stick around and see if we can talk to any of these folks, obviously being very respectful of just the sheer horror that they went through. But again, that is the very latest out here at the Cleveland Park Library, which is serving as the Reunification Center for parents and their kids.
Corey, thanks for putting that in perspective about the minutes and what a different scene we could have been witnessing. People pulling up in cars and a lot of people in vehicles. We heard from Howard University Law School students who felt like they could hear the gunshot, the three barrages of automatic fire as they were in their car and just missed, feeling like they were about to be hit and trapped in a car in these alleyways and on a busy Connecticut Avenue too. The gunfire went on, we should tell you, about 2:30 to 2:45. That's how long it lasted, these three separate bursts of gunfire with pauses in between them all.
Obviously, you know, everybody's question of why, that's still going to take some time to figure this out. We should remind people that right now we have no information on a suspect or suspects. We have not circulated video that we saw play out live. Very different scenario, right? We, around 4 o'clock in the 4 o'clock hour, we saw somebody being led away from the Connecticut Van Ness area by police. That person, we were told, is not a suspect, So again, we saw those images play out. These are all very fluid situations, live pictures coming in. We made sure that we didn't circulate any of that video on our social media platforms, but that person, police have said, is not a suspect. So if you are seeing pictures online, we can tell you police have said that person is not a suspect. They are still looking for a suspect or suspects in this case. And what a frightening scene to watch law enforcement officials in tactical gear, one behind the other, behind shields, moving towards this area, this corner, and then seeing them with guns drawn, pointed upwards. I mean, it's...
And they didn't know who they were looking for.
Right.
And to your point, the person led away was questioned. There were a number of people running from this scene,
right,
and they were pulled over, if you will, and brought aside to be interviewed, and that apparently was the case in that situation. But you saw a lot of people coming out with their hands up, running from that building, and the hands were up so they could show police that they were not the shooter, and that's what they were told to do. A lot of them leaving with pets, but nothing else except for their cell phones. We want to go back down to Darcy Spencer, who was there when the mayor had her briefing with the assistant chief. We understand that she is going to have another media availability. What are you hearing now, Darcy?
Well, Jim, I had the opportunity just a short time ago to talk to a UDC student, a young man. He was a really sweet guy. He was in the Ava building when this shooting happened, and he said he heard as many as 20 shots, rapid gunfire, as so many people have been describing here today. And obviously, he was very scared. I asked him, you know, what were you thinking about in those moments? And he said, really, he was thinking about the fact that a child had been shot and wounded, and that's what he was most worried about. He told me that at some point police knocked on his door and told him it's time to go, and he received an escort out. Let's hear a little bit of what he had to say.
Yeah, so I was in my room, the police knocked, and then they escorted us, like shields in the back, shields in the front. Then we just went out. They asked us a couple questions and things like that. But yeah, as I said, it's just scary.
What were you thinking as you were walking, surrounded by police and shields and your neighbors?
I honestly was just thinking about, because they said there was a kid that got shot. I was just thinking about the parents of those kids, and it's just scary because anybody could be a victim of an act like that. So it's just scary. As I said, scary is the definition of everything that happened.
That was really a perfect thing to say here. Scary is the definition of everything that happened today. When you think about a shooter shooting people, we don't know if it was at random or if it was targeted in any way. In the middle of an afternoon on a Friday, a woman, a man shot, and they're in critical condition. A child also shot and wounded. Fortunately, that's a minor injury, and police, you can see so many jurisdictions are here trying to figure out what is this all about, who is the shooter, and trying to get that shooter in custody before anyone gets hurt. And you see the images of police escorting people out of those buildings and trying to get them to safety. I talked to the young guy. I'm like, well, what do you do for the rest of the night? He said, I don't know. He's out of the building, and really a lot of people are just in a holding pattern. What do they do next? He can't go back home, so he's just going to have to figure out what he's going to do until police can get this situation resolved. I've heard people say that there's going to be another update from the mayor. I'm here where the media staging is. She's not here at this point, but we're here waiting. If any officials come here to provide any additional information, we will be here and available to bring it to you live. Back to you.
We know you will, Darcy, and you mentioned holding pattern. That's the big question. How long will this holding pattern last? The gentleman that she talked to, it's worth noting, was young. Most of the people we have seen running out of that building were in their 20s. A lot of young people live in these apartment buildings around here. You've got the two universities there, a popular metro stop as well. That is frightening, just to see them leave that building and wonder what in God's name is going on this beautiful Friday out there.
All right, we go to Jackie Benson now, who has been our eyes and ears there on the ground, and boy, have we gleaned so much from your years of experience and unfortunately covering a lot of harsh scenarios and dealing with law enforcement, but you've really given us a lot of perspective on what has transpired here, Jackie.
Well, I can tell you in all that time, I have never seen anything like this before. The clearing of the Ava building continues, and that's what I'm going to call it. Police appear to be going floor by floor, knocking on the door of each apartment saying, get out now. We actually saw a young couple out here. They were in their bare feet. That is how fast they got everyone out of there. We have a little bit of sound from the assistant chief that spoke at the press conference a short time ago. Here's a little bit about how he described this search.
We are currently continuing to search the area, and we have it locked down at this point as we're looking for any suspect or suspects. We do not have a motive at this time. We do not know the full details of what took place, but we continue to ask the public to just steer clear of the area as we continue to investigate.
And, you know, I just heard him again say we do not have any motive at this time. That is also something unusual to see in our line of work. Usually after 1 or 2 or 3 hours, police will tell us something like, oh, it was a dispute, or people had a fight, or something like that. The last time I can remember going this long without knowing, without police being able to tell us what that they thought led to this or what was the motive, what comes to mind is the D.C. sniper case. Police could not figure out initially what is going on here. We saw no fight. We saw nothing. Just then, you know, gunfire. So that is a raw and rough parallel that this brings to me in terms of how little information is coming out to us right now. And we understand there is going to be another availability from the mayor sometime this evening. We hope to hear better news. And I can also tell you, I am seeing a diminishing of the body language here, the amount of people who are going with guns drawn. So I don't know what that means, and I'm certainly not going to tell you they found the suspect. But there does appear to be a lowering of the tension level here. Back to you.
That would be some good news, and we could certainly use that now. You mentioned the length that this is going on and comparing it to the hours and the days and weeks of the sniper shooting. Jackie, thanks so much. We'll be checking back with you in just a bit as we continue to wait for the mayor again to step before the microphones and tell us any new information. But as Jackie mentioned from the assistant chief, we don't know a motive to this senseless shooting. Was it random? Were people targeted below? We just don't know. What we do know is that 3 people, as Chopper 4 continues to head over that scene in Northwest D.C., the Van Ness neighborhood. What we do know is that 3 people were shot. We got the call, police did, around 3:20, that 3 people, again, 2 adults, a male and a female, who are in critical but stable condition, and a young child received minor gunshot wounds. We do know that that child is also in stable condition. They were rushed to the hospital, and then we had Howard University Law School, UDC, and Edmund Burke Middle and High in lockdown mode. Initially, children were under their desks, doors were barricaded, and those children still have not been able to leave the school, but police are inside. We do know that the gunman was never inside that school.
Right. Important to note here, too, that whole area remains in a shelter in place. So if you are anywhere around the UDC Van Ness area, you should be sheltering in place. We were seeing officers go in and do a floor by floor, a sweep by sweep, ushering people out of their buildings, running away from the scene. And as our photographer, Tariq Warner, was explaining to us, he was in the area. He had taken the day off to enjoy a beautiful Friday with his family, there to pick up his daughter when all of this begins to transpire. And Tariq was able to tell us that he witnessed that child being taken away, the injured child taken away from the scene by 2 officers in tactical gear. You have to think, you have to put yourself in the shoes of those parents who are going to be having some difficult conversations with their kids tonight about you did the right thing or you listened to authorities. You know, what you do, unfortunately, in situations like this that have become all too common for us in this country.
And you know, the cell phones that we send kids to school with, they were lifelines today. And comfort and peace of mind for all the parents. They've been able to tell them that we're okay, Mom and Dad. We're just hanging in there, and the parents can certainly get comfort from that.
All right, let's hear from D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser. This was a short time ago.
We have 3 of our residents who have been injured, and we are praying for their health and well-being. We understand 2 are in stable condition and that there was a minor gunshot wound to a child. And so we're very focused on that. We're asking all of our residents to follow law enforcement instructions, stay in your homes, shelter in place.
She was joined by the Assistant Chief for the Metropolitan Police Department. We want to hear more about what police were saying probably about an hour and a half ago, what they were saying about the latest on conditions and what happened this afternoon.
Upon their arrival at that scene, the officers located 3 individuals who were suffering from gunshot wounds. All 3 individuals have been taken to area hospitals where they are currently being treated. 2 of the individuals are adults and are considered in stable condition based on their injuries. The 3rd victim is a juvenile, and that juvenile is also in stable condition with a minor gunshot wound. At this time, our units are currently in the area of Connecticut and Van Ness conducting a search for a suspect or suspects. That is still to be determined as our investigation is continuing this time.
All right, and as we have learned in the last couple of minutes, there should be a second media briefing by D.C.'s mayor. A couple of blocks from where Darcy was, where that first media briefing took place, is the Family Reunification Center. It's a couple blocks south. That's at the Cleveland Park Library. So again, officials are telling people if you're trying to reconnect with kids, with family members, anybody that's been escorted out of those apartments, don't go to that scene. Go to the Cleveland Park Library. It's a half-mile south from where all of this is happening. The Cleveland Park Library is the family reunification point.
We want to go back down to Amy Cho, who has an eye on that building, as you have all afternoon. You're at what would normally be a busy Connecticut Avenue, still with rush hour winding up out of town. What can you tell us, Amy, from where you are now?
Yeah, things do seem to have quieted down a bit for now. We have not seen too much police activity or residents evacuating, but we did just speak a short time ago with a mom who was at the Edmund Burke School to pick up her 2 kids right when that shooting happened. She tells me she's so thankful that she did not turn into the pickup lane. She feels that is what saved her life. She did ask that we not show her face, but here's a bit of what she had to say.
To go, but I saw people laying on the ground and there was shattered glass coming down, so I just stopped because it was just chaotic. It wasn't representative of what I've observed in the last 2 years that my children have been coming to that school. So I just stopped, and once the guy tried to reload, people started running. People that were on the ground started running. So then that's when I said, okay, either I stop my car or I back out. And then that's when I looked at the cars in the drive lane, and all their tires were already shot.
And now you can only imagine how terrifying that must have been. Thankfully, she is okay. She tells us she ducked for cover in her car at one point, and then she was able, thankfully, to drive away and get to safety. Her 2 kids are still in Edmund Burke now. She just got a call from them a short time ago. It was wonderful to see her face light up with the biggest smile. They were telling her they're okay and that they're speaking with police. But you can just imagine, you know, how frightening that must be for her as a mom. And she said that she was saying God is good and that she just loves her children. She told them over and over, I love you. You could just hear that relief and see it on her face.
Oh
so
gosh,
we are thankful that she is okay. But yeah, here at Connecticut and Van Ness, we've seen lots of police activity over the past few hours. Officers with shields and guns drawn at points and taking shelter behind trees and cars. Things do seem to have quieted down a bit. We have not seen any residents evacuating for the past 20 minutes or so, which leads us to wonder if everyone has been evacuated safely. We still do not know the circumstances of this shooting, the motive or what happened or how many people police are looking for, or even a description of those people. Those are all questions we are going to stay here and work to continue to learn the answers to. We're going to send it back into you.
All right, Amy Cho bringing us another close call there. We did hear from the police chief that a number of vehicles were hit in this barrage of bullets. We want to go now to Darcy Spencer, who is also on Connecticut around Porter, where the mayor held a news conference with the assistant police chief. What's the latest you're hearing now, Darcy?
Well, Jim, I don't know if you can see it, but another ambulance just passed by here. We're at the media staging area where the officials spoke within the last hour. One more ambulance came through here. We're not sure exactly why, or if perhaps it could be replacing other units that are already here. The hour is getting late. There have been people working very hard here for an extended amount of time, so it is possible that they're getting some fresh people in here. Of course, you want to keep ambulances on standby just in case anything were to happen. A short time ago, I was able to talk to a UDC student who stays in a building right there where the shooting happened. In fact, he heard the rapid fire, gunfire, 20-some shots, he says, when he was at home this afternoon. Of course, it was very scary for him. He was inside his unit for a long period of time, just waiting to see what's going to happen, what is happening. Of course, people watching the news. And then all of a sudden, he was told that he had to evacuate. He was among those that you saw walking out or running alongside police. Let's hear some of what he had to say.
Yeah, so I was in my room, the police knocked, and then they escorted us, like shields in the back, shields in the front. Then we just went out. They asked us a couple questions and things like that. But yeah, as I said, it's just scary.
What were you thinking as you were walking, surrounded by police and shields and your neighbors?
Honestly, I was just thinking about, because they said there was a kid that got shot. I was just thinking about the parents of those kids, and it's just scary because anybody could be a victim of an act like that. So it's just scary. As I said, scary is the definition of everything that happened.
Scary is the definition of everything that happened. That's the quote that I've heard today that really sinks in. That's what people are dealing with, whether you live in that area, whether you have a child in that school, or just in the surrounding community. A lot of concern and people concerned about that child. The good news is we're told that the child suffered a minor injury and is expected to be okay. A man and a woman are in critical condition right now after being shot by this gunman. We are told that they are stable, though, so it's hopeful that they're going to be okay as well. But the latest from D.C. police at that briefing is that they do not have a suspect in custody. We asked about the gun, about how many shots. There's a lot that they don't know, but they're working very hard, obviously, to get this figured out and to get this person in custody. But at this point, there's not even a lookout that we can provide for folks. And police, obviously, just going door to door, doing everything they can to make sure people stay safe, asking people to stay in their homes while they do this potentially very dangerous work and get this person in custody before anyone else gets hurt. Back to you.
And police are also poring over security video from multiple buildings, we understand, to find out what unfolded there. You wouldn't know by the video that we're showing behind you, but we want to go back to Jackie Benson and ask you, Jackie, by that Ava building, you've seen the level of intensity lowered. Is that right in the past, what, 15, 20 minutes?
Yes, and you know, fewer people are coming out. My heart absolutely broke a short time ago when a young man, who is disabled, his father had been out here at the line, very, very concerned about him. Police did bring him out in a wheelchair, but we've seen a slowdown in the evacuation. In that building, I think it looks to me like it maybe has 5 to 7 stories. So at some point, they will have everyone out of there, and at that point, that means if they've gotten into every bit of it, that the suspect is not in there. And that I have, again, seen that happen many times before. So we do not know at this point if they have completely cleared that building. We do know that this was absolutely horrific when this happened. We've heard people talking about the possibility the alley was where, or the center of this shooting. And we have a little bit of video from a Howard University student who was driving down Van Ness, and I believe her car passed that alley at exactly the time this happened. She didn't want to appear on camera, but take a listen to how she described it.
And we heard gunshots go off so close to us, we stopped the car. All the cars just stopped at a straight standstill. And then we all stopped. We didn't know what to do. The gunshots sounded so close. And so we kept driving a little bit, and then another round went off. They just kept going off. It was so many gunshots. And then all the cars just stopped, and everybody on the street was screaming, yelling, trying to find somewhere to go. And then we just turned the corner, and then we saw police, start flying down. Then the police, hop out their car, and then another gunshot, like so many more gunshots go off. They were continuous.
And you'll notice something very significant in what she had to say. They heard the shots. They did not see the gunman. That is very significant because think about it. I mean, people are freezing, but the first thing is you're looking to see where those shots are coming from. Right. So they heard them very clearly, but they did not see the gunman. Again, just, you know, helping to put together the pieces. People want to know what happened. We will eventually know what happened, but people want to know what happened here because this is just a community tragedy that the likes said have not been seen here for my recent memory. Back to you.
Jackie Benson, I mean, and you could tell by, can we go back to Jackie's live shot? Is that a motorcade that I saw behind her? What is that black vehicle that was behind Jackie? Jackie, who is that? Oh no, I'm sorry, it looked like a motorcade. It's an SUV, forgive me. My eyes are deceiving me.
Yeah, no, that's okay because I am hearing some sounds of an arrival, and that could just be, you know, more equipment, more things coming in. But right now, I'm going to actually have the photographer Jake Shaneman show you what it looks like down the street there. Do you see? And my eyesight is not terrific. It looks like those officers do not have their weapons drawn, as all the officers did when they were coming down there before. I don't want to speculate what that means, but again, at a certain point, the Ava will be empty, and then the answer is, did they find a suspect there or did they not? And I'm getting the feeling we are going to have an answer to that at some point soon.
Well, this is back to you.
Their posture, you're right to point that out, Jackie, because for a couple of hours we saw them crouching behind vehicles, we saw them behind mobile shields and weapons drawn, rifles drawn and pointing up at the upper floors of that building.
And the amount of police presence there, and it wasn't just D.C. police. They had Capitol Park police there, Secret Service because of all of the embassies that are just a block upward, FBI called in there, and we were watching all of this unfold and play out, and I mean, you're gobsmacked at what you were witnessing. I mean, these shields moving down the street, and police one behind the other to protect one another. Guns drawn. I mean, it's unlike anything we've ever seen play out live here in this area. All started unfolding about 3:20 this afternoon where Jackie's at. That call came in at 4101 Connecticut Avenue is where authorities were sent to. And that's when we started hearing of reports of a shooting that then confirmed.
Wait, here's Tariq Warner, our photojournalist.
And she said, we heard a lot of gunshots and I'm scared and we're sheltering in place. I literally ran out the car and my wife was like, you know you left the car running. I was like, I didn't care at that point. But and then I rolled up and as I said on the air earlier, I saw tactical officers picking up a child, not EMTs, police officers picking up a child and moving the child while they had other officers had guns trained on the school.
You've seen that countless times on TV. You've been at scenes where
I've shot that.
To be on the other side of that wall.
It's surreal, man. It's like literally, I feel like I'm in a Twilight Zone. I feel like we just gotta do better as people. We gotta do better as a society. We just gotta do better.
Can you explain? I spoke to parents. Had this been 10 minutes later, what is that area like, especially on a Friday?
It's jovial. Let me tell you, the Burke community is a great community. It's a great academic place. It's a great place for your kids to go to school. The parents are cool. That whole, you know the area. I mean, it's Van Ness. It's UDC. It's just very troubling, man. And then, like what we've been doing, we've been covering a lot of death and destruction in D.C. There's an uptick in violence. And nobody's safe from it.
What time does school normally let out?
3:30. 3:15. So the kids are usually out by 3:30.
So what is it like during dismissal time? You know,
it's fine. Kids are just. It's Friday.
Is it kids? Is it
kids and
their parents waiting?
The school's not that big, right? The school is 300-something students, and that's middle school and high school. So it's not a huge school, but it's a you know, it's Friday school pickup. It's jovial. It's not, you know, this is just the most random backwards thing ever to happen, you know.
Have you even started to think about how you explain this?
Well, I talked to Maya. She was in good spirits. And unfortunately, Corey, this generation of kids, it's not that random. They've grown up with I was about to say my own age, Columbine. Not Columbine, but Sandy Hook. They've grown up with Parkland, Florida. They have drills for this. They have drills for this. It's surreal, man. That's all I got.
That is our photographer, Tariq Warner, getting a hug from our colleague there, Corey Smith, on the scene. Tariq, we send you our love as well. Tariq is a parent. His daughter Maya attends the Edmund Burke School. He was there for pickup this afternoon when all of this started happening. He's waiting to be reunited with her. He has been able to speak to her by way of phone. She's in good spirits, as he put it. They're waiting to be reunited. And just over his shoulder, I couldn't help but notice you saw another father picking up, hoisting up his little girl, giving her a kiss on the cheek.
But most of those students, 300 plus, as Tariq mentioned, are still in lockdown right now.
Right.
They cannot leave that building or those buildings around there. Also, UDC in lockdown and Howard University Law School, too. You know, Tariq talked about that. That's a really close-knit community,
right.
This school is, and you can only imagine
right.
the future for the parents and the students, this bond that is unfortunately formed today, and this is going to be part of their childhood forever,
right.
These memories. And this, folks, we got to let you know, this is going on almost to 3.5 hours. Well, it started at 3:20, so do the math. We want to let you know, too, that we're going to run a little bit longer because the mayor is supposed to be coming out with perhaps some new information and hold another briefing as this search, as far as we know, still continues now. Our Mark Seagraves, who knows this city better than just about anybody, is joining us now on the phone. Mark, tell us what you're hearing about this neighborhood and what you're hearing about this investigation.
Yeah, Jim. Well, you know, my apartment looks right over the Ava apartment building. I live right across the street in 3003 Van Ness, and anybody who has seen my live shots over the past 2 years from my balcony knows that you look right down over that building and over Edmund Burke School. So, you know, this is a neighborhood that has several high-rises. That building, the Ava, is about 10 stories high. It looks down over an alleyway that connects to Edmund Burke, and then on the other side is Howard University Law School, and then my building on that side. I am not there today. My son and his girlfriend also live in that building. They've been sheltering in place. They heard the gunshots, thought it was construction work at first, but then got notification from the building that they weren't allowed to leave, that the building was being locked down. And I have to tell you, you know, this is an extreme situation that's going on right now. But it is not that uncommon for us to have gunfire in this neighborhood, to have lockdowns in our building because of searches for suspects. It was just a few weeks ago in my building, a neighbor was stabbed and the building was put on lockdown. You know, it was just a couple of days ago, we were a few blocks away at the ambassador's, the Peruvian ambassador's home, where a Secret Service agent shot and killed an intruder there. That's just a few blocks from this location. And then a few months ago at the Days Inn Hotel, two blocks away, there was a fatal shooting in the hotel there. So this neighborhood, while in upper Northwest, very close to Chevy Chase, Forest Hills, that is a very close-knit, tight community, it has seen its share of violence. And again, you know, from this apartment building, we're still waiting to get information on exactly what happened, but all of these apartments have outdoor balconies that have great vantage point of looking down over Connecticut Avenue, Van Ness, across to UDC, the University of District of Columbia, and the Edmund Burke School. I've talked to several neighbors who told me they just heard so many gunshots, they could not keep track. They couldn't even begin to count how many gunshots they were hearing. They saw glass shattered out in buildings surrounding them. And it has just sent a panic through through my building and the neighbors, directly adjacent to this neighborhood, to this building where the shooting took place. So, and at this time of day, as Tariq was saying, there are a lot of people out on the street there. You have a metro station just a block and a half away. The Van Ness UDC metro station is right there. You've got restaurants, banks, schools. There are going to be a lot of people, and embassies. As somebody else mentioned, there are several embassies right on the other side of Connecticut Avenue. So I'm certain there's always uniformed Secret Service police detailed about a half a block away. So I would not be surprised if they were some of the first responding officers
to
the scene, U.S. Secret Service, because they are actually positioned there 24/7 where those embassies are, and those embassies see a lot of protests too. So this is reverberating through this neighborhood, but it is just reminding everybody in the neighborhood of the other violence and the other crimes that we've been having there, and that it is, escalated to this now. And so, but to see these images of, armored vehicles, outside my building, ambulances, preparing for, casualty events like this, this is not what you expect to see. It's not what you want to see. And, I can tell you every single person in my building that I have heard from is just on edge and still on lockdown, waiting for, the green light. And then they saw those, there were images of people in handcuffs. We heard the police talk about how they were just detaining people who were running from the building in case they may have been the shooter. And so there's a lot of confusion in the neighborhood, too, because there were several messages sent out that they had actually apprehended somebody when they actually had not. And so there's confusion, there's panic, there's concern. And, my phone has been blowing up both from, my sources, other news people, but then just people who know that I live there and are, wondering if I'm safe and if my son is safe.
Well, Mark, and the first piece of color that we had from the scene was actually somebody from your building who said that they heard the barrage of gunfire, and he said it was like 15 shots. It was a pause. I had to ask somebody on the other line of the phone if they had heard it too. Then it was sounded like another 15 shots, a pause, and then more.
We had no idea your proximity there, because we have seen your live shot through this pandemic and your backdrop. Mark, hang with us. We want to get this out there as well. We have just gotten word that 3 other people have now been shot at Kennedy and 6th Streets in Northwest Washington. Again, 3 other people we're hearing right now have been shot. We don't know if that is related to this scene where 3 people were also shot around 3:20 this afternoon. But again, we're going to be looking into that right now as well. We've got crews on the way to that scene. Again, that is also in Northwest D.C. at Kennedy and 6th Street. As for the conditions of the 3 people shot at these live shots that we're showing you right now, we know that the child is in stable condition with minor injuries. A man and a woman are in critical but stable condition from their gunshot wounds.
And we're expecting another briefing from D.C.'s mayor, the assistant chief of police, at 7:30, so about 25 minutes away from that. We're still with you here on the air. We started joining you about 3:45, 4 o'clock this afternoon when all of this began to unfold, and we're going to be with you for the next several minutes until we learn some more information. Let's go now to Darcy Spencer, who's back over. Are you still around the Porter Street area, right, Darcy, Connecticut and Porter?
That's right, Erica. We're on Connecticut Avenue, and you can see the scene north of where I'm standing a few blocks, and the sea of police cruisers. I want to echo a little of what Jackie was saying about the posture, as they call it, out here. It does seem to be calmer than it was earlier today. Of course, I'm not right where everything is happening, where Jackie and Amy are, but I can tell, like right now, you're seeing a canteen pull out from the area. We're not seeing a mass pullout or anything of that nature, but we are seeing people being a little bit calmer right now. So we don't know if that's because there's a holding pattern. Perhaps they're regrouping. They've gotten so many people to safety and now figuring out what the next steps are. We're waiting to see what police are going to say next. You can hear a siren coming through the area, not related to this incident. But you know, we're waiting to see what police are going to say at this next briefing. I'm told it's going to happen right here where I am at 7:30. We're not sure if the mayor's going to be there or not, but we know for sure that D.C. police officials are going to be here to update us on this investigation. So at the last briefing, they told us that they did not have a suspect in custody. They didn't have a motive. They don't know whether it's targeted, and that 3 people were shot and wounded. Let's go ahead and show you the scene, Brooks, if you would, just up the street here. What you're seeing is a few blocks away from where Jackie and Amy are. And again, you just see the continued presence here. But my experience also with Jackie, we can tell when things are a little bit different when you're covering a story like this, and things seem to have calmed down a little bit. Don't want to read too much into that. A short time ago, I was able to talk to a UDC student who was in that Ava building when the shots happened, and he said he heard probably 20 or more shots, and he was evacuated. That's when I got a chance to talk to him. Let's hear some of what he had to say.
Yeah, so I was in my room, the police knocked, and then they escorted us, like shields in the back, shields in the front. Then we just went out. They asked us a couple questions and things like that. But yeah, as I said, it's just scary.
What were you thinking as you were walking, surrounded by police and shields and your neighbors?
Honestly, I was just thinking about, because they said there was a kid that got shot, I was just thinking about the parents of those kids, and it's just scary because anybody could be a victim of an act like that. So it's just scary. As I said, scary is the definition of everything that happened.
And it's scary what he said also, that anybody could be a victim of something like that. Imagine that going through your mind, that you're having just a beautiful Friday afternoon, kids waiting to get out of school, parents coming to pick their kids up for the weekend, and something like this happens, you are stopped literally in your tracks. Life stops. And you know, we're all thinking about the kids and the parents, right? And you're looking again at Connecticut Avenue. We're facing north of the scene, and we're waiting for police officials to give the next briefing. That's scheduled to happen at 7:30. We are here, and we will bring it to you live. Back to you.
All right, Amy, thank you so much, Darcy. We appreciate it. We want to let you know 3 other people, again, have been shot in the Brightwood neighborhood of Northwest Washington at Kennedy and 7th Streets. We don't know their conditions. We don't know ages or if this is connected or related in any way to this shooting that began around 3:20 here in the Van Ness area.
That is a few miles away from that location. Let's go back to Amy Cho, who is also joining us from the intersection of Connecticut and Van Ness. She's right on that corner where UDC is. Amy?
Hey guys, well, I do want to say things do seem to have calmed down a bit for now. We did hear some sirens in the distance just moments ago. We also saw an ambulance driving off with some speed. But other than that, things do seem to be a little bit calmer, not as much tension. We have not seen anybody being evacuated from the Ava building behind me for some time now. So it leaves you to wonder if everybody has been safely evacuated. Want to step out of the way and give you a look here. Of course, still a huge police presence. They do not have guns in hand as they did earlier. Earlier they were pointing their guns at that Ava building. We spoke a short time ago with a mom who was at the Edmund Burke School to pick up her kids right at dismissal time. She says she is so thankful that she did not turn into the pickup line yet. She feels that is what saved her life. Here's a bit of what she had to say.
But I saw people laying on the ground and there was shattered glass coming down. So I just stopped because it was just chaotic. It wasn't representative of what I've observed in the last 2 years that my children have been coming to that school. So I just stopped, and once the guy tried to reload, people started running. People that were on the ground started running. So then that's when I said, okay, either I stop my car or I back out. And then that's when I looked at the cars in the drive lane, and all their tires were already shot.
Now, your heart really does just drop hearing that, that she went through that and that she's so worried about her kids. Thankfully, she is okay. She was able to drive her car out of there. She did have to take cover briefly inside her car. She's still waiting to be reunited with her kids. They are still inside the school. She told me police were interviewing them, and then she'll later be reunited with them at the center at Cleveland Park Library. But that's the same thing we've been hearing from so many parents out here, just desperate for information from their kids who were locked down. Parents and some of which heard the gunshots. But yeah, it's still such a heavy police presence out here, and a lot that we still do not know. The motive for the shooting, who police are looking for, how many people they are looking for. They have not given us a description at this time. We saw them leading out one person earlier in handcuffs. It turns out that person was simply a witness, someone they wanted to talk to who had information. That person was not considered a suspect. We are awaiting another press conference in just a few minutes here at 7:30, so hopefully we will get some answers to those questions. For now, we're going to send it back into you.
Hey, Amy, thanks so much. The woman you interviewed, it's interesting. She assumed that the gunman, the person, the shooter, was reloading during that, what was in essence 2 minutes and 45 seconds of gunfire. Now we're seeing some, we haven't seen this in a while, police officers running from that building. Does the middle officer have a weapon drawn? No, it's hard to tell.
First one doesn't. The two do have their tactical gear and rifles drawn. Can you see them, Amy? Okay, that's still...
Yes, I see
they're coming around the corner there.
Guns. Yeah, I'm not sure what they're headed towards. They appear to have slowed down now.
They're going, so they're going in the direction of Edmund Burke now. Now they've slowed to a walk. I wonder if we can show Darcy's picture, just her picture, so that people can see. Her shot is pointed north on Connecticut Avenue. Look at, you can't even make out the street. That's how many officers, vehicles, FBI, Secret Service, D.C. Police, Park Police, ambulances, firefighters. You can't even, you can barely see the stoplight off in the distance. So this is Darcy's vantage point. She's around Connecticut and Porter, looking north on Connecticut. And this has been how many officers have had to respond to this scene. As of now, we still do not have any awareness from police that they have a suspect or suspects in custody. We're coming up on about 15 minutes away from a next media briefing. We're hoping that we will get some new updates there, some fresh perspective from officials. We've definitely, as Jackie had mentioned, seen sort of the tenor of things, the pace there in that area drastically slow down a bit.
Until we saw those officers running, and you should know, Erica mentioned 7:30. We're awaiting a new news conference, hopefully from the mayor and assistant chief or the chief himself. But folks, this started at 3:20.
Right.
So we are heading into our 4th hour now.
Right, and that's a long time. Even if you've been able to make contact with your kids by phone, that's a long time when all you want to do is just wrap your arms around them.
And an extremely long time for those children who've been asked to shelter in place under desks, doors to classrooms barricaded. We want to go back now to Cleveland Park Library, which is being billed as the family reunification area. And you spoke to our good friend and colleague, Tariq Warner, a while ago, who has a child at that school, still at that school. Are you seeing any families come together yet where you are, Corey?
Not yet, Jim. A lot of it is just talking to folks and saying, have you heard from your child? And they say, yes, we've been texting. They're still at the school. They're still sheltering in place. I've been out here now for about an hour or so. When I arrived, there was a school official here waiting for parents to start to come, and I asked him when we could maybe see some kids come, and he said hopefully an hour. So obviously taking much longer than some parents anticipated, but you can see them. They're still steadily streaming in. The Red Cross is inside here to greet them as they wait for their loved ones, many of them in tears, really struggling to rationalize all this, rationalize how they're going to tell their kids about all this. And that is something that I asked our colleague, Tariq Warner. You've been hearing from him on the phone all day. He was there waiting to pick up his daughter when the shooting happened. He's here now. He's inside, like many parents, just waiting. I know we spoke a little bit, and you all carried that live interview with him, but I also want to play some sound from him as soon as he got here, as soon as we started interviewing him. And it's so strange to have been out on scenes, not completely like this, but similar to this, with the photographer like Tariq, who's been in this business forever, and then to have to see him on the other side of this and put a mic in his face and ask him how he's feeling. But he was gracious enough to speak with us, so let's go ahead and play some of that sound.
My emotions are high, man. It's tough. It's tough. You know, you have to explain this to your kids. I mean, the good news is she's fine. The good news is no kids there died. But we have to explain this to our kids. We have to explain virtual learning to our kids. We have to explain COVID to our kids. And I'm starting to get angry now. It's surreal, man. It's like literally, I feel like I'm in a Twilight Zone. I feel like we just got to do better as people. We got to do better as a society. We just got to do better.
No, I got respect.
That was Tariq Warner, our photographer at News 4. He is inside waiting for his daughter to come from Edmund Burke School. And we have some video that we shot from outside of the library, but showing what this center has been set up to do. There are chairs put out. You will see members of the Red Cross. Many of them have already been called into action to console some of the parents that have been here, many of them seeing the live pictures that we've brought them throughout the afternoon of the SWAT team out in front of their children's school. That is something I think that Tariq told me really hit him the hardest, to see officers with their guns drawn, pointed towards the building you know your child is in. For many parents, and the Burke community, as Tariq has been telling us, is not very large, but it is very close. So many of the parents seeing the images of the windows shot out, posters that were put up last week for a school fundraiser damaged by that gunfire. And really the thing that continues to stick with me the most is a parent told me, and Tariq told us, had this been 5-10 minutes later, that area where the shooting happened would have been teeming with kids waiting for their parents to pick them up, high school kids walking home on their own. So we could be talking about something as bad as things are right now, something much worse, and so perhaps that is a silver lining that we can look to. But it's been a very long day. It is only going to be longer. These parents now have to somehow explain to their kids what is going on. But as Tariq told us, this is the Parkland generation. For them, this isn't random. Yeah. Not to say that these kids are expecting it to happen, but they do drills for this stuff. And it's the fact that they had to put it in practice that I think really drives the point home. And I think that's why you heard Tariq say we just got to do better. But on a day like this, you just ask yourself where to start. And I asked Tariq, how does he even start talking to his daughter about this? And that's something that the parents, a lot of parents inside, are going to have to work through. But that is the very latest here at Cleveland Park Library. We are waiting for those first sets of kids to arrive, for their parents to give them a hug. But for now, we'll send it back to you.
It was interesting how Tariq pointed out he's had so many conversations, as all parents have, about the pandemic. These kids are growing up fast and not in a great way. But it's nice to see in that video that you shot earlier that people were bringing in some food, because it is going to be a long night. We've got a ways to go, folks.
This is the shot again from Porter Street looking up Cleveland. Connecticut Avenue, forgive me, Connecticut Avenue. Let's go to Jackie Benson, where further down that block is where Jackie is, but you can't even see your shot from Porter Street, Jackie, because of how many emergency vehicles are up and down Connecticut Avenue.
No, and I want to tell you, I have a little bit of an update. We hadn't seen anybody come out of the building in a while. This is just moments ago. This group of people were brought out of the Ava by D.C. police officers. I did notice that this time the officers were not giving them essentially cover. They didn't have their guns drawn. They're just bringing people out now. Another thing I want to tell you is that both armored personnel carriers that were here, one from D.C. police and one from the FBI, and the crews that were with them, have now left this scene. So it does appear that they are still in the process of clearing the Ava apartment building. Earlier, we heard from an assistant police chief who described a little bit about this search. Here's what he had to say.
We are currently continuing to search the area, and we have it locked down at this point as we're looking for any suspect or suspects. We do not have a motive at this time. We do not know the full details of what took place, but we continue to ask the public to just steer clear of the area as we continue to investigate.
Now, you did notice that it was an assistant police chief, not Chief Conti, who usually speaks at these things, who's there. My understanding, and this happens, he was at an out-of-town conference on his way back to the area right now, and we may even hear from him this evening. Back to you.
Jackie, thank you. And again, that building, 10 floors. I'm glad that you showed us the last people who didn't have to run out and have their hands over their heads. But 10 floors, you've got dozens and dozens of people tonight who cannot go back into that building, because even if the active search is over, it is still an active crime scene. This picture right now from Chopper 4, folks, is another crime scene where 3 people were shot a short time ago. We don't know their ages, we don't know their conditions, but that is the Brightwood neighborhood.
Right, you're seeing an ambulance leaving the scene. Our eyes over the scene there, courtesy of Chopper 4. This is Kennedy in the 6th, 7th Street area in Northwest D.C., where again, 3 people were shot. We don't know if these scenes are connected. We can tell you these are a few miles apart from one another. But again, 3 people shot in that area. These are live pictures coming from the ground there, where now you can start to see yellow tape all in that area. Police cruisers there on the scene. A very different mood and police presence here as opposed to what we're seeing over in the UDC Van Ness area. But again, this may have transpired a couple miles away. We cannot tell you if these are related at all in any nature, but we wanted to make you aware of what is happening on Kennedy and 7th Streets in Northwest D.C., where 3 people were also shot in this area today.
But you don't see that level of intensity there.
No.
This is strictly Metropolitan Police, and whether they have someone in custody, we don't know in this case. And again, as Erica pointed out, we don't know if they're related or connected in any way. But this is the Brightwood neighborhood of Northwest Washington, and we've said it's about 2.3 miles away from that earlier crime scene that started to unfold around 3:20 this afternoon. Again, we are awaiting another press briefing from the mayor's office. Don't know whether it will be from the mayor or the assistant chief again, but at 7:30 we're hoping to get some new information. Again, the lockdowns continue at schools and at apartment buildings too. And we also, note that, Corey has said he really hasn't seen any family reunions there. A lot of parents are waiting.
Now, Darcy Spencer is over at that Porter and Connecticut Avenue location. In Corey's video, we were seeing actually what I think were meals, bags that were being carried into the library, because it's gonna be a long day and a long night for a lot of parents and kids. Darcy's at, again, Porter and Connecticut Avenue, where I think, is this going to be the site for Darcy, the second media briefing that we're expecting in the next couple of minutes?
Yeah, this is the media staging area. I'm on Connecticut Avenue at Porter Street. We had the assistant police chief and the mayor speak here earlier, and now we're told that there will be an update given to us at 7:30. I've been able to confirm that it will be police and the mayor as well appearing for a second time this afternoon. We don't know what they're going to say at this point. We're anxiously awaiting to see what this update is. We've noted that the scene has a sense of calmness a little bit more than it was earlier today. Not really sure what to make of that, because we are continuing to see resources come into that scene. Just saw a tactical vehicle just come in, and you'll see here in just one moment a canteen coming to the scene as well. They're heading north. That's headed toward where Jackie and Amy are. So there are reinforcements still arriving at the scene. So this is still a very active investigation. So we will see what the mayor and police officials have to say here in the next several minutes. A little bit ago, I was able to speak to a UDC student. He was home. He was in his room when these shots were fired. He heard them. He heard at least 20 of them in rapid succession. And so he was telling us just how scary it was to be evacuated from that building. At the last press conference, we did hear from the mayor. Obviously, she's shaken up. This is her city. And to know that a man, a woman, and a child were all shot and wounded in this incident today, extremely troubling. She has remained here and will appear once again. Let's hear some of what she had to say a little bit earlier.
We have 3 of our residents who have been injured, and we are praying for their health and well-being. We understand 2 are in stable condition and that there was a minor gunshot wound to a child. And so we're very focused on that. We're asking all of our residents to follow law enforcement instructions, stay in your homes, shelter in place.
So you heard the mayor there telling people to stay home, to shelter in place. We'll find out in the next several minutes if police are continuing to give those orders to those folks who live in this area. But I can imagine they're going to continue to ask people to do just that, because this is an active scene. We have not seen police cruisers pull out of here. You can see police cruisers for as far as you can see all the way up Connecticut Avenue. So we're anxiously awaiting to see what police are saying is going to happen next and what the status of this investigation is. Back to you.
Darcy, thank you. And the bad news just keeps coming in, folks. We've got another shooting that happened just before 7 o'clock from our assignment desk in the 7100 block of Blair Road Northwest. A man was found shot in a wheelchair there. He was also transported conscious and breathing. Again, we know now that the 3 people shot in that second shooting at Kennedy and 7th Streets in Northwest were all males. That happened around 6:40. We don't know whether that is connected in any way to this scene that we're seeing around Van Ness that started around 3:20, 3:30.
All right, this is Chopper 4's view of Connecticut Avenue, looking from the north down south. Now we're joined by on the phone again with Michael Kaskin, who joined us in the 4 o'clock hour. And Michael was one of the first people that we spoke to that heard the barrage of gunfire. Michael, you there? It's Erica. Can you hear us?
Hi, Erica. Yes, I'm here.
Hi, Michael. How are you doing? Are you okay? You safe?
Yeah, I'm safe. Just sitting in my apartment, can't go anywhere, and watching you guys on TV.
Okay. So they didn't evacuate your building. You were not evacuated. Correct. You have not. You were not one of the many people that we saw under the cover of these officers leaving that scene.
That's correct.
Okay,
yes,
so you're still
Erica.
in your apartment building.
Yeah, I've been watching the stream of folks leave across the street. So I'm on the first floor of 3003 Van Ness, which is the building directly across the street from the Ava. And so I've been watching folks leave, and I've seen the police officers, up and down the sidewalk all afternoon. But yeah, it's been quite a scene. And I think, as I mentioned to you earlier, I was on the phone with my colleague, and I heard the shots, and I couldn't believe. I thought for a second there was definitely gunshots, but then I was in disbelief, so I stepped onto my patio to get a closer listen, and the second burst of fire, I was pretty certain it was gunfire. And there's been a lot of crime in this area, as you guys know, and so I was like, oh my goodness, that's getting really close to home. And then there was a longer pause, and then there was that third burst that was sort of the longest one. At that point, I went back inside and got by a window and tried to just sort of assess what was going on.
Hey, Michael, this is Jim Hanley. Did you have any sense of where that gunfire was coming from, that it was coming from that Ava building or not?
Jim, definitely. I mean, my sense was, as I looked towards Van Ness from my apartment, again, I'm on the first floor, so I'm right by the front of the building, and I knew it was sort of in the direction of Connecticut Avenue, which would be to my right as I look out towards the street, Van Ness Street. So my sense was it was down that way. And at first, people were still walking up and down the sidewalk. There was a gentleman here doing work on the building, and he was getting his tools out and seemed sort of unaffected by any of it. And then after that third round, I saw people pausing at the front of the building and just staring down the street. And, my business partner said, don't go down there. So I said, I have to go check this out. And he said, don't do that. And so I stood and I watched through the window the folks who were looking definitely in that direction towards Connecticut. And my sense was, I couldn't tell which building it was coming from, but it was definitely down to the right. And as I've seen it sort of unfold, that side of the Ava building sort of makes sense sort of directionally as I think back on the sound I heard.
And you said earlier at 4 o'clock that you saw people out on the streets who didn't initially recognize it as gunfire. It took them a while. They were still going about their business.
Yeah, you know, when things like this happen, I guess time sort of freezes. So for me, it was all like the same moment in time. But I think hearing earlier, maybe it was Jackie Benson talk about the 2 minutes and 30 seconds between that second and third burst was where I thought, wow, it didn't seem like 2 minutes and 30 seconds, to tell you the truth. So I figure the people who were walking, you know, from more of the Howard Law School area, which is to the left as I look at Van Ness, like folks coming from that direction probably didn't hear a lot of it. And again, I saw someone walking their dog and people moving around leisurely as if nothing was going on.
Right. Michael, let me just interject here and let our viewers know we're about 5 minutes away. We've been given a 5-minute warning from the next briefing by quite possibly Mayor Bowser, the Assistant Chief of Police. Not sure who's going to be there, but we're expecting some new information. Michael, before we let you go, can you just tell people what sort of that neighborhood has been like lately?
Yeah, well, so I've been here 3 years, and I would say initially it's a very young area, as your videos have sort of shown. There's a lot of students, both UDC and Howard Law School. So as someone in their 50s, I definitely feel a little bit out of place at times. But the building I live in is definitely probably skews a little older than the Ava building, and but there's been a recent rash of crime in this area. Certainly the well-publicized stories, but also there was a stabbing in this building. There's been a lot of complaints by tenants in the building about the crime in and around the building. The folks who own the building seem like they're finally addressing it. There's a new security system being put in. Literally, it's going live tomorrow, apparently, which is just interesting or ironic, I guess. But yeah, it's the area in general. There's been a spike in crime, you know, since COVID, and sort of began during that COVID time, I would say. But you know, I haven't felt it personally, but it seems like it's all around me.
And I'm curious, before this overwhelming response today, had you seen an increase in police activity in the wake of this recent spike in crime?
There's always a police presence in this area, as you guys probably know. There's always police nearby, and there's so many different jurisdictions. There's the Howard University police where I walk my dog. I see them frequently, and you know, there's the park police nearby, and there's security that the building hired that has been around the area. But, you know, not too long ago, 6 months ago, this scene is somewhat reminiscent of like there was a manhunt in our building where, you know, someone, like the U.S. Marshals were trying to find someone who was dating someone in this building, and so they closed off the street. And at that time, I was literally at a restaurant down Connecticut Avenue. I couldn't get back into the building for a few hours. You know, it wasn't as serious as this, of course, but, you know, it was a massive response. So I feel like there's a lot of police in the area frequently, but it doesn't seem to deter the crime, to tell you the truth.
Well, Michael Kaskin, we are so glad to hear that you are okay. You are one of the, I'm sure, hundreds of residents who are continuing to shelter in place in and around the UDC Van Ness area. Michael, thank you for joining us and for sharing what you heard, what you saw this afternoon. So glad that you are okay. Let's go now to News 4's Amy Cho, who's not far from where Michael is, actually just probably across the street from that area. Amy, you still there?
Hey, Erica, we are still here, and as you mentioned, this entire area is still locked down. All the people who live in these buildings or in this area here not able to go home. We saw one woman who had no idea this was going on. She was trying to get home. She blasted right past the police tape, but the police promptly turned her back. Nobody is able to get in, and all the people who were evacuated out of that Ava building, they had to run out with basically just the clothes on their backs and maybe their phones. They did not have time to grab anything else. And as the sun sets and it's starting to get a bit chillier out here, you really feel for those people who ran out in t-shirts and shorts. Hopefully they will be okay and find a place to go. Now, earlier we did speak via FaceTime with a person who is still locked down inside her apartment building. Here's a bit of what she had to say.
Okay, Amy, thank you. We see Mayor Bowser right now walking up to the microphone. We heard from her a little more than an hour ago, and the assistant police chief, too. They talked about the conditions of the 3 people shot in Van Ness. She had very little else to say in terms of fighting crime and the senseless nature of this, because they really didn't know at that point who they were looking for. They had no suspects in custody, and how long the search was going to take, or any motive at all. She has prepared notes with her now as she approaches that microphone, and you have to wonder if she's going to give some news here that can change the whole landscape of this evening.
Everybody ready? Good evening. I'm Muriel Bowser. I'm the mayor of Washington, D.C. I am joined by members of my public safety team, including the Metropolitan Washington Police Department. We are joined in a response to a shooting on Connecticut Avenue in Washington, D.C. By our federal law enforcement partners. We are providing our second briefing on this active investigation. We have some additional details to provide in MPD and our partners to continue to investigate. I do want to say earlier when we talked about students from the Edmund Burke School who were in a lockdown situation. I'm pleased to say that we are beginning to reunify those students with their families. I want to continue to thank all of our residents for their patience and continue to ask them to follow law enforcement guidance so that we can locate the person responsible for this violence in our community and keep everyone safe. So with that, I'm going to turn to Assistant Chief Immerman, who is going to provide details of where we are with the investigation.
Thank you, Mayor Bowser. Good evening. As we briefed a little while ago, our investigation is continuing here on our scene. At this time, based upon the things we have seen on social media, based upon the information that we are investigating, we are seeking a person of interest that we would like to speak with. That individual's name has come to light as a Raymond Spencer. He is a 23-year-old male. We will be posting information on our social media shortly to get the public that information. We would like to speak with Mr. Spencer. We'd like him to come forward to the police, turn himself in so we may speak with him further as a person of interest. As the mayor alluded to, we are in the process of working to get the students out of the schools that are in the area and get them towards our reunification center. Officers are still in those schools with those children, making sure that they are safe while we do that. If any parent or any family member is in contact with a student who is not in the presence of the officers that are in that school, if they're in a classroom, if they're somewhere where the officers aren't with a larger group, please tell those students to come down towards where the officers are in the building, in the hallways, so that way we can get everybody together and that way we can get them safely out of the school and back down to the reunification center with the families. I'll take any questions if we have. So his name came up through some of the social media things that we have seen so far. Again, we want to have a conversation with him. We want to figure out what's going on, if he is involved in this or not in any way, shape, or form. We do not know if he's in the area. We are working to determine whether he is or is not at this time. That is still part of our investigation.
There are bullet holes in storefronts down the street and also in a car. Is that related to what happened up here, or do you know?
So at this time, our detectives are aware of those. Our officers have responded down, and we've met with the individuals at those locations. We will be looking at that to see if it is linked forensically, but it is very possible. Yes, thank you. I appreciate you asking that question. A fourth victim did respond to our officers here on the scene. That individual is a mid-60s female who sustained a gunshot wound to the upper back, probably described as almost a graze wound, and medical treatment was rendered here on scene. That individual did not have to go to a hospital. But that is our fourth victim. Our updates on our other victims, the 54, I believe, year old male is stable at the hospital. The mid-30s female is also stable at the hospital. And as we said earlier, our 12-year-old female victim who was shot in the arm is also stable. So at this time, we have 4 victims that we are aware of.
Are you aware if this is connected at all to the triple shooting we saw on Kennedy Street this afternoon?
I have no information that would lead me to believe it's related, but we will investigate all those angles.
Chief, you been able to locate where the shots came from this afternoon and where the victims were struck?
That is all still part of our active scene. We are still searching through buildings. We're still doing some tactical searches up in that area. So all of that will hopefully come to light.
Were the shots directed toward the glass bridge between the 2 buildings at Edwin Burke?
That we don't know at this time. We have not determined where the shots came from or where they were directed to.
Can you circle back to that video, the social media rumors about this being live streamed possibly by the suspect or shooter? Any update on that?
So we are still looking at that to determine the authenticity of that. As I said earlier, this person of interest name is linked to some of those social media postings. So that's why we want to talk to that individual, is to determine that name does come back to an individual.
Can you tell us more about the other scene that was just referenced, where that was and when it was?
So the restaurant that was shot, that sustained damage, is further down here on the block on Connecticut. I apologize, I don't remember the name of the restaurant, but they came forward to us to let us know that they had received that damage to the property.
Was that before or after?
We were already on the scene here when we were alerted to what happened down there. So I'm not sure if they didn't know about it at the time, didn't realize it, but we're looking at it to see if it is in fact related.
Chief, do you know if this person of interest, if he's known to law enforcement at all, or known to have weapons or anything like that?
I don't have that information at this time. Again, at this time, we don't, we'd like to speak to Mr. Spencer, figure out, if he has any role in this or any connection to this, and hopefully that'll lead us in a direction to identify what happened here and why. We're going to be here until we're confident that we have the safety of the community in mind and that we're continuing this investigation.
Are you still asking folks to shelter in place where they are? Are you taking them out building by building?
So we are working to clear buildings as we can safely, similar to how we're doing it with the schools and with the Reunification Center. So as we can safely do it, but we still would appreciate folks not heading up towards that area of Connecticut Avenue.
Did you mention the age of Mr. Spencer in the description?
He's a 23-year-old male, and we're going to be putting his information up on our Twitter. It's been put on our Twitter already, in our social media accounts.
Were you asking people to shelter in place still?
We would prefer people to stay inside up there and to avoid that area. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, we've just been
I want to reiterate my thanks to all of our law enforcement partners who are here. It has been also responding. 4D is responding to 2 sites. So we are very focused on getting people help and stopping gun violence. I think it should be mentioned that unfortunately I had to look in parents' eyes tonight who were terrified. And they were terrified thinking of what might happen to their children. And we have experienced this too much in our country. The epidemic of the gun violence, the easy access to weapons has got to stop. People should not be scared taking their children to school.
There you have it, Mayor Muriel Bowser and the Assistant Police Chief. We now have a person of interest, a name, Raymond Spencer, 23 years old, from the MPD Twitter account. He is from Fairfax, Virginia. There is his picture there, 2 pictures there. You heard the assistant chief make reference to a reporter's question about live streaming of this incident. And apparently that is how they got his name and description linked to some postings. They are calling him a person of interest right now. They want to talk to him, but it's through social media that they were able to track down this name and age and where he is from. We also learned that there is a 4th victim now, a woman in her mid-60s who received a graze wound from gunfire. She was treated on the scene. The 12-year-old girl was shot in the arm, and she is in stable but minor wounds, minor injuries.
Right. And again, important to note here that police are calling him a person of interest, and they continue to ask people to stay clear of that area. I mean, there's no way that you can get down that block right now to begin with, but you have to wonder whether or not the threat to the public continues to exist in that area. If we've been told there's not a gunman in custody, there's not a suspect in custody 4 hours after this started to unfold. Unfortunately, that's a very nerve-wracking situation for anybody that lives in and around that area.
And the mayor started by saying that the beginning of the reunification process has started between among parents and the children at Burke. So that we thought was going to be a good sign. But then we heard very quickly that they are still looking for this person of interest and the shooter. But we do have a picture to work with. Police want to hear from you if you know his name, Raymond Spencer, 23 years old, of Fairfax, Virginia.
Let's go back to Darcy Spencer, who was there on the scene listening to the mayor, a very frustrated mayor with this epidemic of gun violence, as she has put it herself, that has transpired in this city. Darcy?
Yeah, I think the mayor's comments were very moving. At first, she wasn't even going to say anything. She started to walk away from the cameras, and I said, Mayor, do you want to say something? And she walked back up and gave some very emotional comments that she had to look in parents' eyes today. Those parents were terrified. And imagine, as a mayor, this is her city, having to look in the eyes of those parents who are terrified. Their kids are in lockdown inside a school. There is a gunman who has shot 3 people already and is not in custody. So, yeah, she is frustrated and also just very emotional. This is a long day. This has been going on since the 3 o'clock hour, and police are still here on scene. There are so many officers. They're also working overtime to try to get this solved, to get the person in custody. The new news that we just got is that they do have a person of interest, and apparently they were able to develop this person based on some social media postings. So you better believe law enforcement, they look at social media as well, and they're seeing what people are posting, and they developed 23-year-old Raymond Spencer as a person of interest. They say they want to talk to him at this point, not being named as a suspect. It's just someone who they want to talk to based on social media posts. So we will have to wait and see if they're able to figure out where this person is and where that person is, and whether they can make an arrest. I asked, do you know where he may be? Is he in the local area? Has he already left? That's something that they're not sure of. They want to make sure they get everyone out of harm's way, especially those children, and clear the buildings in the area before they can get back to any kind of normalcy. Let's hear a little bit of what the mayor had to say. She was very, very emotional.
I think it should be mentioned that unfortunately I had to look in parents' eyes tonight who were terrified. And they were terrified thinking of what might happen to their children. And we have experienced this too much in our country. The epidemic of the gun violence, the easy access to weapons has got to stop. People should not be scared taking their children to school.
So you heard those very strong words from the mayor just a short time ago, talking about the epidemic of gun violence. And, you know, it's just scary to think a little girl, 12-year-old girl, shot and wounded, a man, a woman. I asked how long do they think that this on-scene part of the investigation may be going on. Of course, they have a lot of work to do. They got to take care of people first, make sure people are safe, the kids are safe, and this investigation is going to continue here for the next several hours. But at some point, they're going to have to figure out and decide, do they think that this person, this gunman, is still here in the area or has left? But I expect that they're going to be continuing their investigation here. Things are going to be on lockdown for some time in the next several hours at least. But we'll wait and see if there's another update. They didn't say if there would be, but I'm expecting at some point we should get some additional information. Also, that fourth victim coming forward. So now this is a total of 4 shot and wounded here today. Back to you.
And people, importantly, it was mentioned, should continue to shelter in place for how long we don't know, probably until they find
Darcy,
this person of interest.
Let me ask you, the buses that were leaving the scene behind you that were out of service, do you by any chance know if anybody was on board those, if those might have been any of the buses shuttling teachers, students from that area? Have we gotten eyes on the kids, on the staffers of the school yet?
No, as far as I saw, as far as those buses, they were out of service. I didn't see anyone on those buses or them being used in any way as part of this investigation. But yeah, they'll have to figure out how to get all these kids home. You know, parents were told not to flood the area, of course.
Exactly.
So, but no, not at this point. I think they're safe inside the building, and that's the best place for them to be, to make sure they're not exposed. They're there with the police. Many are in contact. All of our kids, many of them have cell phones, or a friend has a phone, to make sure that you can stay in contact, especially in a time like this. You want to just know that they're okay.
That's a good thing. Exactly. Darcy, we want to pick back up on the reunification. The mayor mentioned that the process would begin, so we want to turn to Corey Smith. Corey, what are you seeing there at that reunification center at the Cleveland Park Library? Have you seen some families get together yet?
No, Jim. Still have not seen any sort of reunifications. No shuttles, vehicles that you would expect to have large amounts of people in them pull up to the library here. It's just a lot of police, anxious parents who have been inside for, some of them for more than an hour at this point, come outside just to get some fresh air, to take a breath on, you know, what has obviously been a very, very long afternoon. But I can also tell you, Beth, if you can, you'll see that Red Cross vehicle there blocking the sidewalk. On the other side of that vehicle, there is a car with a bullet hole in it. And I believe we also have some video that we can show you, giving you a picture of what that was. During the press conference, we heard a reporter ask the member of the police department whether that car, that bullet hole, may be connected to the shooting scene down there on Connecticut Avenue. The officer said they're looking into that, which, just to give you a perspective, we're about a half a mile from the school. So you can only imagine how far that bullet would have had to travel if indeed it was shot during the barrage of gunfire. And not only that, there were also 2 businesses nearby that were hit. Biblo's Deli was hit. Uptown Vision has a bullet hole in its window. So police are trying to determine whether that is connected to the shooting down there on Connecticut Avenue. But again, that is about a half a mile away from where we are. In a bit of twisted coincidence, the man who owns that vehicle, his wife was down in Navy Yard when that shooting happened. So I just spoke to him just about what this afternoon was like, what he was doing down here, and ultimately walking back to his vehicle and finding that bullet hole in the driver's side of his windshield. Let's go ahead and take a listen to what he had to say.
So I parked it directly in front of the 7-Eleven and then took my wife and 3-year-old son to the zoo for the afternoon. That was about 2 o'clock. Returned about 4:15, somewhere in that neighborhood. When we entered the vehicle, we noticed it was just completely full of glass. And then, because we approached it from the back, and then we noticed that the front windshield had a bullet strike in it. My wife was at the Navy Yard during that shooting. It was her floor, so she very much wanted to leave the area. So we removed ourselves a little bit from the scene, but then stopped at the next police officer that we saw, and then gave him our report and the bullet that was lodged in the front console.
I asked Roman how he is sort of rationalizing this. And I also asked him, when we think about the trauma an event like this will no doubt cause to these kids, to these teachers, I asked him how long it's taken his wife to not get over it. You can probably never get over it, but just at least to accept it and try to rationalize it. He says, you know, several years on, I can't recall how long ago the Navy Yard shooting was, he says his wife still deals with the stress and the trauma when she hears about an active shooter situation. She gets anxious. So today was one of those days, and you can only imagine how much worse it is when it is in your own backyard. So certainly kind of gives you an insight into what these parents who are waiting here at the Reunification Center are going to have to go through. They are traumatized themselves, but obviously our thoughts are with the kids that have been in that school all day for what, the last 4, perhaps 5 hours at this point, just waiting anxiously to see their parents. So hopefully at some point soon we will start to see these kids arrive to the library to see their parents and start the long healing process. But that is the very latest here from Cleveland Park Library. We'll send it back to you guys.
All right, Corey, thank you so very much. We got to get to Jackie Benson now, back to the scene where this all originally started unfolding. Jackie Benson joining us live tonight. Jackie, can you hear us?
Yes, I can, and I hope you can hear me. What's happening now? It appears this scene is absolutely ramping down. There is also an investigation, a search for the person of interest in this case that is going up exponentially every second that passes. All the type of resources, everything you saw here, that's now going in the direction of finding this person of interest that they're looking for. A short time ago, I spoke to a woman named Fatima. She lives in this building, and I'm sorry, we do not have her sound, but she lives in this building, and she, like everyone else, is waiting. There are almost 300 units in that building waiting to get back in there. But the search right now shifts from this location, I think, and shifts to we don't know where it is going. Live in Northwest, Jackie Benson, News 4. Back to you.
Jackie, thank you for your 4 hours of complete coverage and bringing us the very latest. We appreciate it. Amy Cho has just talked to someone who was shot, a victim in this afternoon. What did they say, Amy?
Yeah, she, of course, is so thankful to be okay. We just spoke with her moments ago. Patricia Termini was grazed by one of the bullets in that shooting. She showed us the bullet hole in her shirt, and she still had blood on the side of it. We want to give you a brief clip of what she had to say, and she described that harrowing incident.
Kind of unnerving because I physically and, literally don't really see much from my point. So I see enough to know that something is wrong, and that was kind of what was going through my head at first. But, I didn't really know what the situation was or how long it would be going on. Obviously, it's been a couple of hours now. My roommate and I both feel safe in here for now. We can still see people coming and going, but just kind of awaiting updates as they come.
It appears that was the incorrect video file that we played. We apologize for that. We will work to turn around the correct one for you. We're going to send it back into you.
All right, Amy, thanks so much. We'll be back, of course, with updates at 11. We want to let you know that there is another briefing set for 10 o'clock now, but should any news break, any new developments, we will be right back on the air live for you. And, of course, you can always go to our NBC Washington app throughout this evening, and we'll be right back here with live team coverage with the latest at 11. We do have a name, a person of interest. We do have a picture. So police are frantically searching still.
Right. Raymond Spencer, 23 years of age. This is the person of interest that police want to talk to tonight. 4 people have been shot, the youngest victim, 12 years of age, and the search for a gunman continues tonight. We'll be joining you later this evening as soon as we get more updates. Count on it for 11 o'clock, and if we get anything new, we will be joining you on air and online. Thanks for staying with us tonight.